Music Man! Music Man! Music Man! Oh, yeah. Hey guys, and welcome to GT Live, a very special edition of GT Live, as you can tell by that very special intro. That was amazing, by the way. Matt, that was available for everyone to just experience over and over again, right?
Yeah, link in the description.
There you go. Perfect. So, real quick here, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us today here on Saturday. And I am so excited for what should be the next hour or two of just awesome FNAF discussion. I think it goes without saying that Security Breach has been one of the biggest games for YouTube, but also just for our channels and a lot of other channels out there that cover indie horror that's come out in a while, right? It exploded onto the scene. We were waiting for it. It got delayed multiple times, and now it's finally arrived to, a lot of feedback, both positive and negative. And so I wanted to bring a bunch of people together to talk all things FNAF Security Breach related. Reception of the game, overall thoughts on the plot and theories, where the series goes next after what has been a game that's been 2+ years in development. What stories are left to tell? What do we want to see happen with this thing? And so that's the plan for today. Long and short of it is just kind of a more casual hangout with some YouTube channels, some faces that I hope that you recognize, and maybe even some new ones that you might not, to talk about this game franchise that we all love, or love to hate, or at least mildly tolerate. Oh wait, you're giving me a note? I know everyone's name. We were talking, we go way back. Matt behind the scenes right now is here's a post-it of everyone's name. It's I know their names, Matt.
I'm trying to be helpful.
That's great. Well, thank you. Thank you. I don't know your name because it's not on this post-it note, so thank you, mysterious person behind the scenes. So anyway, because now I know everyone's name, I should probably bring him on. Real quick, let me just say... Nope, that's it. I was going to say... You threw me off, man. It's fine. Don't worry about it. So thank you all so much for being here today. If you haven't gotten a chance to yet, there is our last... for now, Security Breach theory that we just put up on the channel about an hour ago. So if you haven't seen that, it will be helpful to see, but, not required viewing for you to appreciate everything that we're going to be talking about today. Spoiler alert, it's more about robot children. I'm sorry. I don't love it. I just report the facts as I see them. So without any further ado, let's bring on some of these faces here, starting with this Dan. Dan, for those of you who don't know, Dan is our head editor here on Team Theorists. Dan, hi. Do you have some thoughts?
Who are you?
Do you not have a post-it note?
I did not get the post-it note.
Matt, where's his post-it note?
It's in the mail.
It's in the
It's coming.
Oh, I didn't check my mail. I'm sorry. All right. Well, hi, stranger. Welcome.
Thank you for joining.
What? Thank you.
So Dan, like I said, is our head editor, and you might be asking yourself, well, why would the head editor of Game Theory be here? Well, Dan has some very heated thoughts to share on Security Breach.
I got hot takes. I got so many hot takes. It's ridiculous.
He actually worked it into his contract that anytime he has a hot take about a theory, he's allowed to work it into an episode or a live stream. So this is me fulfilling my contractual obligations to him.
Yep. Look, negotiate hard, negotiate strong. That's the most important thing. Just
if
you guys are to take anything away from the stream, is negotiate rants into every contract you get.
He could have had more vacation days, but he's like, no, I want to be able to rant freely and openly on live events.
You don't need vacation days when you just get it all out of your system.
I was going to say you don't need vacation days when you work in a loving, embracing environment like this one. Moving on to Tom. Leave that one hanging there. Tom, for those of you who don't know, Tom has been a researcher and writer for us for a while behind the scenes, and now he is spearheading a lot of the discussion on all things game theory, but specifically, he is the person on the team who is obligated, speaking of contractual obligations, who is obligated to talk to me about Five Nights at Freddy's. Stephanie got sick of hearing my 3 a.m. rants about Fazbear Frights, and so Tom is now paid to do that. Tom.
Hello, those are long meetings. We have had many.
We have. This game has prompted a lot of long meetings, haven't they?
And it was one of those things where it'd be 15 minutes. Oh, let's just quickly catch up. And that turns into 2.5 hours later. And that happened multiple times. And you know.
And also you being across the pond, as it were. So you're also dealing at later hours, too.
Absolutely. So, yeah, I have no sleep schedule anymore. Matt works me hard.
So how many books deep are you at this point?
Oh, I wouldn't. Oh, just so many. There's so many. I know they've got numbers on the front, but I'm lost. It's like probably I've read, I think, one or two of the novels, I think, and then
Great.
This is how confusing this whole franchise is to me.
I was gonna say
there's so much to keep track of.
It's all blended together into a bunch of faz goo, right?
It's trying to remember which one is which.
Sure.
So I'm like 11 of the I think I've done all 11 of, because there's the 12th
Fazbear Frights, but then the 12th one's coming out with the shark on the cover.
I've done them, and then I'm slowly working my way through very slow novels. So
there you go. So that's Tom, and that's Team Theorists. We also have, again, according to my very helpful post-it note, we have John from the FNAF channel. So wonder what he covers, right? John, introduce yourself to everyone.
Hello, everyone. My name is John from FNAF, but not FNAF. It's FUHNAFF. I see you guys in the chat, and I'm really happy to be here. I just cover everything FNAF. I play FNAF. I talk about FNAF. I cover news about FNAF. So it's really awesome to be here because I was one of you in the chat just 7 years ago. Oh my goodness, and it's an honor to be here. So thanks for having me, Matt Pat.
Yeah, of course. No, and congratulations on the huge amount of growth that you've had. It's been awesome to get my FNAF news from you when it comes to casting, Willem Dafoe now in the FNAF movie. What?
Whoa!
When are you gonna drop the bomb that I was cast as phone guy?
I know. It's already been dropped. It's already been dropped.
I missed my own press announcement. Shoot. No, but it goes. I think it's worth calling out. When you say 7 years ago, the last time that we did a live stream like this, where we got a bunch of FNAF fans, theorists, channels that cover FNAF, was actually 7 years ago to this day. And you, like you said, you were in the chat during that stream.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I was. I ate those streams up. I loved them.
And now you got your own stuff, which is awesome. The other thing too that you didn't mention, I think is worth calling out, is that you are also a FNAF speedrunner. Yeah.
Oh yes, I am. I'm a FNAF speedrunner. I've started recently running FNAF Security Breach in the past month. I've been streaming almost every single day, 4 to 6 hours on my YouTube channel, just trying to get a world record. I'm currently 4th place in the world. It's been a journey, but it's been really fun working together with other people that are working hard to get it, and DJ Sturf and just other YouTubers and really awesome people. So yeah, it's been super fun.
Cool. That's awesome. I'm going to have some questions for you about kind of the speedrunning stuff here in a minute. But moving on to a guy who was here 7 years ago, the only other guy old enough here on the stream, Doggo, a face that everyone is familiar with at this point. Hey.
Hello.
How are you, Doggo?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing well. I cherish any opportunity to see you.
Yeah. I don't know how I feel after Security Breach with all the lore and everything.
Tired? I feel tired.
Yeah, tired. Yeah, tired. But it's been a good adventure. I feel like this game out of all of them has been the most has had the most longest time to keep talking about it. Mm-hmm. There's so much content in it, and yeah, it's been really fun. And also really confusing and complicated, and this and this and this and this.
Right, and also so much content that isn't in it, which we'll talk to Tetrabit here in a second. One thing I did want to ask about, though, since we're talking about hey, we did this 7 years ago, what has changed, in general, right? Looking at either the FNAF franchise or just you and your life, looking back 7 years, What would you tell
Yeah,
old Dawko?
I was gonna actually ask you about this. Like, did you think we'd still be here 7 years after, talking about FNAF still?
Oh,
because
geez, no, I keep expecting the channel to die every 2 years.
yeah, because I think the stream was just after FNAF 4, so Sister Location, FNAF World, FNAF 6, and Security Breach now, and FNAF VR. It's crazy, right? Just looking back, and it's still going.
Well,
and it doesn't look like it's gonna end yet as well. So give it another 10 years, we'll be back again.
Right? It's interesting, and again, we can talk about this more later. But it's an interesting turning point in the series. I feel like where this is. I mean, there's been other games that external teams have worked on, but as far as like official canon next steps in the lore, this is the first one that's kind of out of Scott's hands. It's a bigger game, obviously, and so it does really feel like a big transition point for the series, right?
Yeah, and because it's it's blew up so much with releasing on consoles and stuff, and how well the trailers did as well, and how long it took to make. It brought a lot of people in waiting for the game to release, and I think that it will be similar with the movie as well. Whenever that releases, I think Steelwood wanted to do it so newcomers can get into the franchise, and there's still old lore inside of it for the oldies like us, but I feel like the oldies, the boomers, the FNAF
geriatric.
boomers. Yeah, but I feel like that it's brought a lot of new people into the game as well. There's a lot to take in with the game, but hopefully this stream can we can talk a bit more about it and get some ideas involved.
And we'll start getting the senior discount.
Yeah, that too.
But moving on to a super horror bro, Mike. Mike, how are you? Oh no, we can't hear Mike. Uh-oh. Matt behind the scenes is going to work on Mike. In the meantime... Oh, wait, there he is.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, there you are.
Yeah.
Hey, Mike.
Second time's a charm. Hello. Yeah, thanks for having me on the stream. It's a pleasure to be here, Matt.
Of course. Do you want to introduce everyone to you and your channel?
Of course. Yeah, my name is Mike. I run a channel called Super Horror Bro. It's basically a horror gaming channel. I do like Let's Plays, theories, story explain videos, looking into the lore behind different monsters, and in the case of FNAF, different animatronics. That's kind of my content, and Security Breach has been the latest sort of super big game, of course, that we've covered over Christmas, which was really cool. A lot of new faces on the channel from that game.
So true story, this is actually the first time that I've gotten to see and meet some of these people in person, and these are channels that I've watched for a while. And when I reached out to Mike, if you've never seen his channel, absolutely go check him out. He's amazing. Everyone is amazing, but the reason I say him specifically is in reaching out to him, we've gotten a lot of requests to cover Little Nightmares as a franchise, but his coverage of that game, especially the second game, which is pretty confusing, is so good that I watched his videos and I'm like, I don't think there's anything that I can add to this. He did it. He wins. Congratulations. So, a theorist after my own heart, Mike, it's an honor to have you on here, and it's awesome to finally get to meet you after years of watching your stuff.
Yeah, same. It's feelings mutual. It's lovely to be here with you.
And I asked you this before the stream, but I'd love for you to answer it on the stream too. You cover all sorts of different horror stuff, indie stuff. What has gotten you most excited recently, or that you're looking forward to?
I'm really looking forward to this year. There's an upcoming game, actually. I'll give it a shout out, called My Friendly Neighborhood. It's like, I always liked Sesame Street growing up and the Muppets and stuff, so it kind of fuses that with horror games, and also a game from my childhood that I really loved, Time Splitters. So it kind of brings that kind of classic Time Splitters gunplay into it. So I'm really looking forward to that. Should be a demo out for that soon as well, I think in the next few weeks, so everyone can play it. Also, I'm kind of looking forward to the new Bendy game, because I'm quite into Bendy Ink Machine. It's what started my channel and kind of put it on the map. So the Bendy and the Dark Revival will be like a game I'm looking forward to this year quite a lot.
Is it actually going to come out this year? You feel good about it?
Yes. He's got cut off again.
The Meatly games are like, nope. Nope. Silence this man. Moving on to Tetrabit Gaming. How are you?
Hey guys, I'm Tetrabit. I run the channel Tetrabit Gaming. I primarily cover cut and unused content in video games, but I've also dabbled in speedruns and mods and all that stuff. And I guess before last month, I've only made like one video on Five Nights at Freddy's, covering the first couple of games. And I guess 2 months or so, I've pretty much turned into an app channel at this point. It's just the game that keeps on giving in terms of unused content. I've made like 4 videos alone on the cut content spanning almost like 100 minutes. Like there's pretty much a second whole game here, and I'm sure we'll get into it eventually. But yeah, that's kind of my elevator pitch there.
Right, watching your stuff, it's unreal how much is kind of like under the hood and behind the scenes in here. Is there another game that has had this much that didn't make the final cut, or at least had some interesting bits under the hood for you?
Sure. I mean, there's some games that I'm scared to cover, just because they have so much content. Like I know Half-Life 2 stands out for me, but in terms of stuff that I have covered, Deltarune Chapter 2 would probably be the game that would be a runner-up to Security Breach here. Just so many different cut graphics, stages, audio, pretty much anything you could ask for.
Did 1 have a lot of cut stuff as well, or just part 2?
1 did have a lot of stuff, but not. I don't want to say not nearly as much, but just not as much. Also, I think 2 kind of expanded on the debug mode that the first game had, so just a lot more functionality with stuff like that. But I think just as the game expands, I think there's just gonna be more and more stuff left in the game that doesn't go used.
Cool, that's awesome. Yeah, and I can't wait to hear what you found in the background as it relates to kind of like theory stuff and just overall like what we can expect in the DLC if it's already kind of hidden there on the game disc, so to speak. There's last but certainly not least is Masked Nintendo Bandit, Mr. Jordan himself. Hey.
Well, hello there. My name is Jordan. I run Masked Nintendo Bandit, and I still don't think I quite comprehend the fact that I'm on the stream right now with all these legends. So hello to all the legends. We've been chatting for a bit, but also hello to everybody watching. Yeah, I do theories, kind of like here, but
I've heard
normally
of that. It's a good game.
Yeah, I do. But normally on Zelda, and then more recently on like Undertale and Deltarune, and obviously FNAF. Hence why I'm here. So yeah, I'm super excited to talk about all the controversial issues that you can think of.
Are you thinking of rebranding the channel as Masked FNAF Bandit now?
Oh, that's a good question. Or would it be Masked Steel Wool Bandit at this point?
Oh, wow.
For no. Yeah, we'll put a pin in that one.
Okay.
I'll send it over to my PR guy, which is also me. So we'll review it. So.
Also, I noticed, and one of the things that brought your channel to my attention actually was I saw that you had done a theory on FNAF that was actually along the same lines as what we had thought about when it comes to Golden Freddy and Cassidy and Princess Quest and all that stuff, which we'll talk about here. But so I think great minds think alike. I feel good that you and I are on the same wavelength here.
Matt Pet just called me a great mind, people. That's it. I'm done.
clip it.
No,
Clip it up.
I'm done. I'm clipping that, and I'm going to have a channel just dedicated to clips of one every day, just reposting it. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, I was so excited when I saw that we did kind of come to the same conclusion. Obviously, we both talked kind of different ways to get there. Mm-hmm. I'm not trying to shape anything here. Anyway, kind of different ways to get to the same spot that we went. But anyway, it was just so exciting and so encouraging. And who would have thought that, if I didn't upload that, be brave a little bit, try to, cover FNAF, I wouldn't be here. So.
No, glad to have you. And also, it's important to have you because if we're going to convert Dawko away from a non-robot belief, like the kids can't be robots, I need someone in my court. So I've stacked the deck against Dawko here. That's exactly it. Get ready for the debate, Dawko.
Converted.
It was in the contract. No.
It was. You read the thing we got you to sign, right?
I read it.
Okay, so real quick, everyone, thank you for introducing yourself. Thank you all for joining the stream today. I'm really excited about this. Just to start things off, warm everyone up, general thoughts about Security Breach. Did you like it? Did you not? The good, the bad, overall impressions of the game. I think in the immediate aftermath, everyone was in such a rush to get content out around it, cover it, do their immediate hot takes. But now we've gotten a little bit of time to marinate in it, right? Like we're kind of towards the tail end of the first wave of hype before DLC launches. We're kind of in this midterm period. I'm curious, have your thoughts about the game changed? What's your overall feedback at this point? Let's talk about... I don't want to touch Dan yet, because Dan is just going to...
The background's red for a reason.
He changes it based on his mood. Let's go to Dawko, actually. Dawko, obviously you are synonymous with this franchise, so I'm curious about your take first.
I liked it.
Great, thank you. Moving on.
Yeah, that's it. Thank you. No, I did genuinely like it. Playing through it, I didn't get as many bugs as some other people, surprisingly. I think I only got a couple, and a couple of soft locks. But
only
overall,
a couple of soft
only
locks.
a couple compared to other people. That's pretty good, okay? I did really enjoy it. I think it was refreshing. Because I said this when the trailers were coming out, it was nice to have an official FNAF game that was not just, sat in an office and clicking doors and stuff. Although that's still entertaining, having an actual free roam FNAF game, having it as, the biggest game, I think Steelwool did a good job. And it's brought so many new people into the franchise, and, the lore is confusing. I'd say that was the most... negative thing I could say about the game is that there's a lot of, misplaced lore all over the place, and when you finish the game, you're just like, okay, so what is actually happening here? Hopefully, with the DLC and the patch, like some of that can be improved on. But overall, I think it was a great step forward with the franchise, in my opinion, and it's looking promising in the future. Those are my thoughts.
No, absolutely. And also for John, I'm curious, because I think of everyone on screen right now, you've probably spent the most time with this game, right? Because you're very actively pursuing, the world record for which category are you in?
It's the Vanny ending inbounds.
Okay, so you're not totally breaking the game. You're just like moderately breaking the game.
Moderately, like using little exploits, but like not going out of bounds.
And how long how long does it take to do a run of that at this point?
So the world record's about 14 minutes, 14 seconds. It's on average, it's like 15 minutes to finish it.
Yeah.
But yeah.
That's wild. So how many hours have you clocked in at this point?
Oh, over 200.
Wow.
Easy over 200.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so you've spent a lot of time with it. How do you feel? Do you like it? Do you not? Do you appreciate the bugs? Do you not? I'm curious.
Yeah. So when I first played it, I assumed it would, there wouldn't be many bugs. So I put the settings up and I experienced the bugs and the lags. But once I put the settings down, it honestly wasn't that bad for me either. It's easy to forgive things because of the hype. Like you get really excited for the game and you're like just playing it and you just can't believe. I just remember not being able to believe what I was seeing, because it's like FNAF has come so far from the very first game where you're just sitting in an office to this. And I think for Steelwool, this was a good first free roam game for them, because if you look at their past games, it's very different from anything they've ever done. So I really enjoyed it. I thought it was very fun. I think that's the most important thing. It's very easy to go back to this game and for me and speedrun it and never get bored. Maybe it's because of the nostalgia, because I can't believe it's a real FNAF game. But it's just I had a lot of fun with it. I think I agree with Dawko that the most frustrating thing was the lore and specifically the direction they decided to take the lore and how vague it is. But other than that, I think it's a fun game. I think there's a good game, and once the patch comes out and all that kind of stuff, I think it'll be a great game. So
well, hopefully we can come to some conclusions and some answers today. That'd be nice.
Yeah.
What about for Tetrabit or Jordan here? As not necessarily relative newcomers to the franchise, but people who have not been covering it hardcore, who aren't. I'm curious to get your take. Have you played FNAF games prior to this? Were you familiar with the franchise? Kind of as people who don't live and breathe animatronic horror and, don't necessarily know what Fazgoo is, like, which I think at this point is the arbiter of, like, how deep into this franchise you go. Like, what was your take?
Mr. Tetrapit, sir, would you like to go first?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Yeah, so I have played the other games, not too much. Most of my experience was just watching Game Theory, Markiplier, for stuff like that. So I kind of went into Security Breach.
Mention, by the way. Thank you. Thank you so much.
it was also in the contract, so every 5 minutes gotta say something.
Plug something about Game Theory. Please.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No, but yeah, so I went into Security Breach. I had like zero expectation. I don't think I watched any of the trailers going into it. I kind of just got it on a whim. I was like, oh, that's several times more expensive than the previous games, but I'll check it out. So yeah, I honestly really enjoyed it. It was really cool to see like this was like the natural next step and evolution in the series, kind of what I think it needed. I mean, the point and click kind of games were good. I really did enjoy them, but this kind of like pushes the series forward. And like the others have said, it's been put on consoles and stuff like that. So just brings a lot more people to the series. And I mean, the bugs are certainly there. When I first played it, like, how you run through the game, it jitters every couple seconds. I thought I just had the graphics cranked up too high. Then I brought them down to low and it was still happening. And then my chat was like, oh, no, that's not a bug. It's a feature. Yeah,
it adds to the charm. It adds to the charm.
Exactly. So I don't know. I've kind of grown to not necessarily the stuttering between loading zones, but I've kind of grown to like the other bugs that have come out of the game in terms of speedrunning. I myself got into speedrunning the any % category, so that's the one you just beat the game in with no holds barred. You can do whatever you want. So I think I was able to beat the game in 5 minutes, and I think I had third in the world for a couple minutes, and until it got overtaken by a lot of people. So I don't know. I've kind of just like aside from like looking at the unused content, just the game itself. I think it has a lot of replayability to it. Like I'm just echoing other stuff other people have said. But even like some of the bugs that are still left in the game as we're doing this, I think it kind of adds to the charm almost. I big fan of that.
Well, and actually, I think you bring up a really good point, which is I think that this game, the way it is presented, a lot of the jankiness of it has allowed it to persist much longer than other FNAF games in the past and other just games in general in the past. Like it's broken and there are bugs, but it's broken in an interesting way, which allows you to have cool exploits when you're speedrunning, or it allows you to come up with like WTF moments when you're looking for lore, or there's a channel, I think is Astral Spiff, who, found like the Giga Monties, where an army of Monties just attack you because you're time traveling by hitting certain markers throughout the game. And it's like, it's an interesting game for all its brokenness. It adds another layer of things to talk about and to explore. It's fun in its brokenness, which is cool.
Yeah, exactly.
How about you, Jordan? I know that you had some thoughts too.
Yeah, well, I mean, just kind of ditto on what's been said a lot, which is that there are bugs in the game, but I'm going to be kind of compartmentalized about how I feel about it. So, the bugs, obviously, when you're not, like, expecting a bug, and this goes for any game, obviously, like, it's not a good thing, I think, is safe to say. I loaded in once, and my flashlight was, like, in my face, and I couldn't do anything about it.
That's helpful.
Just couldn't do anything about it. Yeah, right. It was a headlamp. It pointed the wrong way, but it was a headlamp, But so, like, that kind of took me out of it a little bit. But, ultimately I was still able to, save, reload. Although there was this one bug that I didn't even know was a bug because it was such a big bug. When you're like running away from Roxy through the fire room. Well, I played it on the PS5 and the fire didn't show up. So, like, it just was not there. So, like, when I was trying to get away from her, I was like, what are these invisible walls? Why can I not walk forward right here? And I was 100% confused. Did not know how to get out of the room. I literally just randomly started going back and forth and got to the vent. And she, for some reason, didn't kill me, which was probably another bug. But anyway, so, that's a little frustrating. But in hindsight, it's not that big of a deal. Is it my favorite FNAF game? Probably, yeah, but not for the same reasons as I would play the other FNAF games.
Interesting.
The other FNAF, well, I mean, you know, because it's for different reasons.
Yeah, of
so the first FNAF games were all bona fide horror games, right? Like, I mean, jump scares, you know, it zones you in. There's a lot of audio design, you know, they're brilliant, you know, and that's why that formula was repeated quite a bit. Security Breach is like an adventure game, you know what I mean? I mean, it's like, I will be brutally honest, there were very few moments in the game that I was actually scared.
Sure.
You know what I mean? It's like, that's what I'm saying. It was like for different reasons, you know? I was going into that game because I wanted to know what was going on.
Yeah.
You know, I wasn't going in there because I was like, oh my God, Roxy's chasing me. Oh my God. You know, I don't know what to do. So anyway, speaking compartmentally, and I know I'm rambling at this point, I really enjoyed it for all of its lore implications. Confusing stuff is awesome. I love puzzles, you know what I mean? So anyway, that's my thoughts on the game.
Oh man,
The
and
glitches
that's
were
why
kinda
we're here.
frustrating,
That's
but-
why we've done 4 theories about this game in particular. So no, we'll be getting to that here in a minute. But I'd be remiss if I didn't give Dan his contractually obligated rant period. So strap in, friends. Dan, go for it. What are your thoughts?
I'm starting to realize why I was invited onto the stream. And that was so I can be the one that everyone can direct all of their strongly worded comments to.
Are you the lightning rod of hate?
Apparently today. look. Okay, let me just. Oh, that didn't work.
What are you
That
doing?
absolutely broke everything.
Our head editor Dan, everyone. Thank you, head editor
it's
Dan.
ruined.
He has his own channel too. Congratulations, Dan.
Yeah, thank you. Just get that. There we go. Hey, let's just get real
getting
nice and
close to the
here.
camera.
Yeah,
You know you
okay.
can physically do that by approaching the camera.
No, this is better. This is better. This is better. Okay. You know,
I promise
chat,
this is better.
Chat, you know I love you very much. Okay? And that's why this is gonna hurt a little bit. It's an unfinished game. It's way too buggy, and it kind of bothers me a little bit that a game that is so buggy that multiple people were soft locked. I think when we were talking before the stream, 5 of us got soft locked during
Raise
the
your
game.
hand if you had to like get soft locked and restart in some capacity.
Okay, so so basically everyone.
Mike, well done.
Yeah, that's right.
It's the fact that people got soft locked and there's so many bugs, and yet on Steam it is highly reviewed. I think it's very positive right now. However, Cyberpunk comes out just as glitchy and broken and soft locky, gets panned across the board, just absolute hate to the point that the game's dead. It seems a little weird to me, but there's something there, and I think that's the most frustrating thing for me is you can tell that there was a game in there that was going to be great, and that's what makes it so frustrating. We talked a little bit about what what cut content there was, and like some of like where did the development shift and all this sort of stuff. There's something good there. And there was a good story that I think I've pieced together of what they were hoping to get.
Yeah.
Told. It's so close, and yet it's not done.
Yeah. Well, and
I'm hoping the patch could fix everything. It's very possible, but that's a big finger cross.
Well, and the question I have for you is, and I think this is just a very brief tangent that I'd love to just talk about, which is what you call out the comparison to like a cyberpunk, right? Is there a world where a smaller team, you know, because obviously, you know, Steel Wool is going to be a much smaller team than CD Projekt Red, right? Is there any sort of excuse or credit that they get for pursuing something that is ambitious?
Yeah. So, I mean, and I think that's why we're all okay with it being buggy. Like I had a bug last night as I was replaying it to make sure I was all caught up. And I called Freddy and he got stuck in the door of the elevator. And then I was like, well, I'm hitting the button and seeing what happens. And then he just kind of sat there and waved in the wall to me. And I was like, thanks, Freddy.
That's canon, by the way. Freddy has the ability to pass through surfaces, certainly.
So it's one of the things where it's like, yes, there's a bit of a charm because it's a smaller studio, but setting that aside, at the end of the day, any game developer out there is trying to make a good game and is trying to put out a good game. And so if you put out something buggy, you know, when you put something out, you're open to criticism. That's like, I strongly believe that anything you put out as an artist, as a creator, anything like that, you're opening yourself up to criticism, and you should be able to expect criticism. And so, yeah, Cyberpunk should not have come out like it did. It was a disaster. Like, most of the people could not play it, which is a shame because I really like the story. But at the same time, Security Breach should still receive the same criticism of being like, guys, this isn't done yet. And of course, you can never tell what execs are thinking, right? Like, could they have delayed it longer? Probably not. You know, they probably had a deadline they had to hit, and that's that. Like, we have that here at Theory. It's like, well, we have to get this out tomorrow, so let's, you know, do the quick fixes, stay up till 3 a.m. and get it out the door, you know? So that's kind of my take.
Yeah. No, and I think that's totally valid. And to your point about the amount of stuff that got cut, right? Or that there was a good game in there that ultimately got buried, I think there's no better expert for that than Tetrabit here, who, like he himself called out, has like 100 minutes on his channel just dedicated to everything that's behind the scenes. So can you give us... I've watched it, and it's great. And so can you give us some highlights as far as what was back there and what you think was meant to be that ended up not making it?
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, there's everything from several scrapped animations that didn't make it in. I think one of my favorite things was there's also several mini games that it's kind of just smaller stuff, but like mini games. I think there's 9 holes for Monty Golf that didn't get scrapped. And it was also found that if you can actually like mod in an old menu into the game, where you can access the mini games, you can access them right from the menu whenever you want. And in that menu, it actually specifies that there was going to be 2 different Monty Golf arcade machines. So somewhere else in Monty Golf, there was going to be a second machine which you could play the back 9 for the mini golf mini game. There's I also covered a scrapped Chica's Feeding Frenzy mini game. So that one is still pretty rough the way it is left in the game. So it's unclear when it was scrapped from the game, but there's that. There, like in Bonnie Bowling, there was actually like you could have actually went bowling there. There's a scrapped, and it's still left in the game. There's a scrapped old test version of that area where there's a fully functional bowling mini game left in the game. And then apart from that, there's references to several dialogue bits in the game that kind of give a whole different spin onto what the story could have been. I think like in the intro section in the game, currently Freddy refers to Gregory as being broken, which leaves it more vague. And before, I think it was explicitly said that he was bleeding. So they kind of, I guess, made it more ambiguous. I guess that's a little point for the robot kid theory. But other stuff, including like there's so many chunks of the map that were removed. Stuff like there's going to be like passages and corridors between sections of the Pizzaplex behind the level 10 doors. I think that's probably what they were for. I think a lot of people have seen that now, where it's just like stuff like being able to take a shortcut from Gator Golf to the daycare section, stuff like that. It just seems like there was a lot more. It was once going to be a lot easier to get around rather than having to take elevators. And if you played the game, you know it's how annoying it is to get around. But I think like the biggest thing that was discovered that was scrapped from the game is a scrapped survival mode. So if you've played older FNAF games, you know there's you could play custom modes where you could customize which animatronics you want and stuff. So left in the game, again, part of that menu that you can put back into the game if you know what you're doing. This survival mode was essentially like a randomizer. So it would be like a separate version of the game where gifts were scattered all over the place. The security doors had different security levels than they do in the normal game. So it was just like a completely different mode that was scrapped, and there's still just remnants of it in the game. And again, that's just scratching the surface. There's other stuff like things like audio leftovers suggesting and animation leftovers suggesting that a lot of the endings to the game were supposed to be fully animated cutscenes as opposed to the comic book strips we got. There's so much there that like was echoed here. It just suggests there was a lot more to the game that I guess just didn't make the cut. Will we see it in the future? A lot of us are hoping so. That a lot of this will get added back in, but I guess
and that's what I was actually going to ask to kind of put a pin in this one, which is, do you think that like DLC is going to bring some of that back? Like, how playable is survival mode? How much is there, and how easy, kind of based on what you saw, would it be to kind of slot that back in and say like, oh, here's a whole new play mode?
Yeah. Considering it's already there, I mean, it's not very playable. If you don't have like debug mode toggled on in the game and stuff, it's not playable at all. And even if you do manage to get it, it's playable. Like you can't even do the main the main gimmick of it was collecting presents to get more security passes to get around, and you for whatever reason can't open gifts in that mode right now. But that said, everything's there. I think it's just running on an older version of the map. So I think if they were able to keep all the coding they have for it and just slap it onto the current version, I think it's within reach. I think it's reasonable to expect that we will be getting it added into the game, given how far along it is left in the game as it is. And in the menu that I mentioned previously, there's already a DLC button in the game. It's just hidden. So I think I would be surprised if that wasn't part of that in the coming months.
No, that makes a lot of sense. So, that being said, though, that's the game that we could have gotten, I guess, which leads to the question of, like, well, let's talk about the game that we did get, right? And I think one of the things that everyone has kind of reiterated, even in our most recent theory, is the frustration around putting together the lore. Like, what is this game about? You know, and figuring out what is actually the plot of the game. What is the meaning of all these lore hints and clues, and the Blob and Patient 46 and Vanessa and Vanny and Gregory and is he a robot? There's so many pieces that kind of work, but no one explanation really brings things together into a cohesive whole that you're like, okay, I understand what this game was trying to say. Let's move on to, let's open the door to whatever the next thing is. So I'd love to kind of dive into some theory crafting around that, if you guys will permit me. Yeah? We okay?
Absolutely.
We're already getting controversial. Okay. So Mike and Tom, this one's going to be for you. So first off, let's start off easy. Vanny and Vanessa. Let's put our stake in the ground. Right, this is easy. Are they the same person? Is Vanessa, the security guard, actually Vanny, evil murder bunny?
I think so.
Okay,
100%.
Mike is going to put his foot on it. He says yes.
Because, I mean, I've made a video on this, and I basically went through the story as I saw it emerge in Help Wanted, and then what we got in FNAF AR. And I think it would just be sort of... I think it would be bad storytelling if, after all that build-up and all of the trouble they went to establish that character, and sort of seeming to be under the control of Glitchtrap, ordering like the rabbit costume, speaking to somebody through the computers, working with Fazbear Entertainment before the Pizzaplex. If they were then two different characters, it would just seem like it was doing that for the sake of subverting expectations almost. So I think, like, with all the evidence on hand, especially Freddy's comment when you find the Vanny hideout and he says, oh, it's a coincidence that they've got the same name. I just think it all heavily suggests and that ending where, she's unmasked and they look the same. I mean, they could be twins, but I don't think so. I think that was just a symbolic sort of ending, that fire ending. I think there's so much evidence that basically puts them together as one person that I would be personally unhappy with agreeing on them being separate people from my perspective. But, I'm happy for everyone to have their own sort of opinion on that. That's how
just
yeah.
Get that in there.
Yeah, just get that in there.
Disclaim, lampshade.
These opinions are mine and mine alone.
Tom, I know you and I have had a bunch of discussions about Vanny versus
Yeah.
Vanessa, and I think you fall into the same camp, yeah?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, like Micah said it brilliantly. To be fair, is it would be really bad storytelling given FNAF VR and FNAF AR, just the story that's been set up over the course of those games and in the lead up to this, for them to then suddenly be like, no, actually, it's not, and it almost feels like that fire ending has been thrown in as a kind of, oh, maybe you don't really know, like even though we all kind of know. I agree. It's probably symbolic more than anything because it is pretty much the only thing that points them at being two people. Like that is the one piece of evidence that trumps the whole, they're the same person, but it's the only piece. And so it makes it really hard. Like you've got emails from FNAF AR which talk about VA and Vanessa A, one ordering fur and masks and all that sort of stuff, but then there's like almost like code where basically she is introducing a glitch into the system, creating not identity is the wrong word, but admin logins basically, that she can then go in and approve this new file, this new code going in, and they're all like, hang on, what are you doing? How do you have access to this? Why do you have access? What are you doing? And so you go, this is literally all the stuff about glitch trap and wanting to spread, and we even see that in the Fazwatch messages in this game about, and the therapist tapes as well, about things spreading through the system and the animatronics getting creepier and getting more like broken up and sort of disheveled as the game goes on. So it just feels like, as much as there's a lot of theories about them being twins or not, it just feels like they have to be the same person given everything leading to this point. It would just feel a weird curveball to throw in at the last minute, which FNAF's confusing, but you can, as we've gone through the series, you can make things work. You can get to the conclusion eventually. It's you just to suddenly bring in, oh, by the way, here's this other character, a twin sister that we've never heard about, or here's an identical bodyguard, it just happens to be there. It's just a bit like that feels wrong from a storytelling standpoint and from just FNAF storytelling in general.
Yeah, it feels like a departure of how the story has tended to go and kind of trying to shoehorn something else in.
Exactly, which I appreciate could happen, given Steel Whirl is now obviously doing much more of the game and Scott's obviously taken a bit of a step back from it all. There's potential for new stuff to come in, but to do something that drastic feels like probably not a great idea, just from a fan base standpoint. It's like ease people into the change rather than go, our first game without Scott, and here you go, here's a big, 3 big twists that you can't solve.
Well, also, I think going back to the cut content, I think Tetra in your one of your videos, I think it was part 2, you found like the Vanny meter, right? And it was cut where at a certain point the meter would go up and up and up, and then Vanessa just transforms into Vanny, right? Is that the case?
Yeah, essentially. So I wasn't able to recreate this myself, but Maz over on Twitter, and I think is part of the technical FNAF Discord as well, they were able to record footage where, so there is a Vanny meter that's you can access with the debug menu in the game. In the regular game, it's just a thing that pops up on the top of your screen and it slowly fills up. But if you put that meter, or if you enable that meter in the survival mode that I mentioned earlier, that's, I guess, where it was intended to be used for. If Vanessa is roaming around the Pizzaplex, as soon as it hits the top, she will start to jog, and then just instantly transforms like right on the spot from Vanessa into Vanny. So that being said, I don't disagree that they aren't the same person anymore, but I think initially they were supposed to be, but this might have been another like change they might have made mid-development. I do think that what we see in the ending, in the fire ending, I think it's pretty explicit that they are different people. It's kind of like I guess supposed to be like, big twist. Maybe it'll have implications in future DLC and stuff, and they might get into that. And I know there's a lot of evidence to the contrary in previous games, and I truly think they, just based on what we saw with the survival mode, I think for sure they were supposed to be, but now I guess they're kind of leaving it more ambiguous for better or for worse.
Yeah, that makes sense. And so that's interesting. It seems like general consensus, one and the same. Yes, we feel good. No, Jordan, you shook your head.
Original intent.
Well, no, I was just, This is really nerve-wracking bringing this up now, but I'm
Here we
actually
go.
on.
Here we go.
I'm actually on the separate people team
Okay,
there.
okay.
I know. I have to balance it out. You
This
know, I'm
this
backing
isn't
you
in my
with the
controversial
robots.
section. This was the war. If we're disagreeing on this, oh no. Okay, yes,
Matt,
please
No, it's
give us
gonna
your
go to
take.
hell from
Give us
here.
your take. No,
But no, I mean it's not that it doesn't very much so look like they're the same people. And you know, I readily admit that they probably are. I mean, like Freddy's literally like, "Yo, Vanessa, Vanny." It's like Vanessa and Bunny. Isn't that weird? You know? So you're like, okay, they're probably the same people. So like I admit that. But that ending I just can't get out of my head. And so I think I actually just went live with a theory video earlier today that I talked about this a
ooh,
little bit
shameless
in it.
plug. Great.
I know, right? Sorry, but I talked about it at the end, and I said that I think that something's gonna have to get retconned because if that is a symbolic Vanessa up on the Pizzaplex, with the fire behind her and stuff like that, like that's the first time a spirit has ever looked like that in the franchise. They've always looked the same. They're grayscale. They hover. They normally cry. I don't know, but it just feels like it's a person because the fire exit leads right there. And
She's
she
pretty
wasn't.
calm, though, isn't she?
She is very calm. Absolutely, which ties back into the fact that they're probably the same people. But I just can't get it out of my head. You know what I mean? Like her facial expression as well. She's kind of like, You know what I mean? If I died, I'd be like, oh God. But she's just kind of like, wow, what's going on here, man? Almost as if she knew about it. Anyway, but they're probably the same people. I think that something doesn't make sense, right? She is just the new normal way for spirits to look and appear and be attached to locations in this franchise, or they're two different people, which also doesn't make sense for all the other reasons that everybody talked about before me. So
Well,
welcome to FNAF.
Yeah.
hell yeah.
Well, congratulations, you're part of the community.
Thanks,
now.
thank you.
Are you frustrated by trying to solve the lore? Hey, there you go.
Theory
You've been
101.
indoctrinated. Not to be the but actually guy, but I know the comments will rake me over the coals if I don't, or someone doesn't bring this up, which is, technically speaking, if you're talking about the portrayal of spirits in this franchise, you have the one you should not have killed, aka Cassidy, aka Vengeful Spirit, who appears in Custom Night, and that is a much more humanoid
It's
figure.
super blonde.
Yeah, with actual hair and eyes and, like features that look, human.
That is true.
Yeah,
that
so-
is true.
And I believe
Okay. That's a good comeback.
before Vengeful Spirit, every other spirit that you do see in the game, I'm going to say this, so I'm going to step into my own trap, but I believe every other time you see a spirit is in an 8-bit minigame.
Yeah.
And so it makes sense that they would have a more stylistic, like you said, gray, monochrome, very basic pixel structure as opposed to looking human, right? So we've never actually seen in the real world how these spirits actually get portrayed until kind of those two moments, I would say.
That's true. That is true.
I will back you up. I'll throw in one piece of evidence that could say that it's two different people.
All right.
And
I also have some stuff.
Okay, here we go.
I think
begins.
it's subverting expectations.
Thanks, Game of Thrones.
Like a fog wall.
I mean, it's a very
That's not
easy trap.
evidence.
Well, it's
Subverting
okay. It's not
I
evidence.
think it's subvert. Great. I think it would subvert
It's
expectations.
writing evidence.
If you pull back the mask and it's a tiger underneath, and you're like, why is there an anthropomorphic tiger in FNAF now?
Yeah,
But it'd be cool.
It would be cool.
Here's the thing. I believe we mentioned earlier that the endings originally were all supposed to be fully animated. So these comic book style things were probably a late choice. So it's far enough into them trying to write the story and trying to come to a conclusion where they're like, everyone's pieced this together so fast. Wonder if we just put two of them.
Yeah.
That's what it
And
feels like.
I'd hate to say it, but like that could have been it.
And so your evidence is just like, yeah, they threw it in there.
Okay, it's less evidence and more like
Speculation.
potential.
Appreciate
Sure.
it.
Yeah, I
No,
can
and-
see how you could twist it.
Here, let me. I like playing devil's advocate, and then also my own devil's advocate. I mean, here's the evidence that you're looking for,
devil.
which is, hey, this is a franchise that historically is known to use the same name and or faces multiple times across multiple installments, right? So
Sure.
the classic example here is Jeremy, right? Jeremy is used in no less than like 5 or 6 places across the games, across the books. You know, he's a he's a missing children's incident victim. He slices off his face in FNAF VR. He is Jeremiah in the books, which is also symbolic of the FNAF VR story. There's 2 other Jeremys that don't come to mind right now, but like, Jeremy Fitzgerald on the paychecks. I mean, there are so many Jeremys that you're absolutely right. If there was another Vanessa A or Ness A from FNAF AR, which is where all of us got the idea of like, oh, well, she's got Glitchtrap inside of her and Glitchtrap is talking to her, whatever. And Vanessa A, who is also a security guard at a Pizzaplex, are 2 separate Ness A's. Sure, 100%. Yes. I mean, this is a franchise that knowingly throws those sorts of misdirects in to try and keep the mystery going. So yes, I mean, I would hate it, and I would highly disagree with their decision to do that, because I don't think that's a smart storytelling decision. But is it something the franchise has done before? Absolutely, yes. John, you said you had thoughts as well.
So I've put a lot of hours in the game, and I think there's some obvious things, and
But you only play the first 15 minutes.
I've done more than that.
I've done 200 hours, but 15 minutes of it.
Okay.
No.
I think there's some obvious things, and this is part of my favorite game. Is it a mistake or is it actually meant to happen? I think one of the things for me that kind of was the first thing that set off an alarm in my head, I was like, okay, so when Vanessa catches us and we're in that room, she's on the screen, and then all of a sudden Vanny shows up and she's just there. And not only that, and I don't think she's like setting up her ring light and being like, hey, like and subscribe and pre-recording it, you know, for the video. But I think it's interesting that Vanessa feels the need to have to fake being a security guard still to him. Like, she doesn't need to do that. And she's not shy about being Vanny, because she shows, you can see out her on your watch. She shows up on the cameras. She's not shy about running around being Vanny. I think it's interesting that she feels the need to fake being a security guard still, even in that moment when they're in private on that screen. She's like, you know, I'm gonna wait till your parents arrive. And then she just kind of flips. And I think I have a weird theory that Vanessa and Tape Girl maybe are sisters, because Tape Girl is something that we never really got a proper conclusion on.
By Tape Girl, you mean Patient 46, because there's 2, just to clarify for everyone.
Yes.
Or do you not?
Do you mean FNAF VR?
Oh,
Oh, no,
Tape
Tape
Girl,
Girl, I
talking
mean
about-
FNAF VR.
Oh, sorry,
Retro
FNAF, yes,
16.
not Retro CD Girl. Sorry.
Yeah.
Very important to distinguish.
Please respect the
Because-
lore.
Yeah, we never got a proper conclusion on her, and I think it may be possible that she could be Patient 46, because these tapes were happening before Vanessa was at the Pizzaplex, and it was Vanessa was working with Fazbear, and Tape Girl was also working with them at the exact same time, presumably, and she beta tested the game and got potentially taken over by Glitchtrap before Vanessa, so that explained why she was deeper into the Glitchtrap trance in the tapes and in the CDs, retro CDs, I should be clear. And she's like farther along, and she's just kind of a shell of a human because Glitchtrap took her over, and then she tricked Vanessa into, you know, joining her. Or I don't know, there's a lot of avenues, or like Vanessa or one of them went to save the other. And I think I also, one of the evidence pieces is that in Security Breach Fury's Rage, which, you know, is probably not fully canon, and it's just like a fun game, but it really hints at one of the big bosses being the Blob, and it kind of looks that one ending boss kind of looks like the Blob. And in that game, one of the weird bosses that we get, they kind of all fit. There's some weird ones with how Security Breach is, but we get VR sisters. That's one of the bosses in Fury's Rage. And I think it could be possible that one of the sisters, maybe Vanessa, went to go save her other sister after being taken over by Glitch Trap. But then her sister, already being taken over by Glitch Trap, ended up, the first half of the tapes in VR are like, oh, this is how you need to avoid getting these all together. And then all of a sudden she switched and says, hey, you can get rid of them if you put them all together. But there's never really a good ending to that game. So I think Vanessa's sister, if that is her sister, Tape Girls is her sister, tricked her. And now they're both under the possession of Glitch Trap. And they're working together at the mall to bring William Afton back. And that's why they look sort of similar.
And why Afton says both of you in that one trailer.
Yeah, and I guess that. But I don't take the any marketing from the early half
prior to the game.
Yeah, we just forget that.
Because I think the story changed in summer, and I think we were getting a little too close to what the story was going to be, and I think Steel decided to change it up a little bit, and I don't know. That's
VR
what I think.
sisters. Damn it.
I don't know.
Okay. No, I hear that. And I'm like, ooh, that is weird, and that is like that's one of those clues. Like I think one of the struggles that any theorist has when you're talking about these games, right, is the idea of like what is a clue to the lore and what isn't, right? Like what is stuff that is intentionally shoved into the game to kind of lead us down the path of solving the mystery, and what is just like Freddy glitching through an elevator door because of awkward gameplay mechanic, right? And I think that's always a challenge with this franchise. And so you saying like, oh yeah, in this kind of filler game that Scott Cawthon released as kind of like an apology for like, hey, I delayed the game some more, you gotta wait longer, but here's a side-scrolling beat 'em up. For those of you who don't know, FNAF. What was it? Fury's Rage, right? It's like, it was, but it was like this very short game that it's side-scrolling beat 'em up, and you see a bunch of wacky characters, but like Monty Gator's in it, and this and that. And you're right, one of the bosses was VR Sisters, and it's like, that damn it, that one gets me.
I don't know, and it could also be. I mean, in the books, I hate to bring up the books, but
so do I, and yet they exist.
But it could be very well possible that once Elizabeth died, William Afton, not too soon after, rebuilt her and built different ages of her throughout the years, just like we see in the books, in robot form. So that could be VR Sisters, two different versions of the same person. Doing the same thing and maybe them as well with Gregory were found somewhere because they collected a bunch of things from the old pizzerias, and they literally have one of the FNAF 6 pizzerias underground. Maybe they just were somewhere hiding, and I don't know. I could talk more about that, but
sure.
Yeah.
Well, and it brings up an interesting question, and I think you bring up the problem that we always have for ourselves anytime we do a FNAF thing, which is the books, right? And where does the book series, both book series at this point, fit in with the overall lore crafting? Same thing, and I think, our first robot Gregory theory on Security Breach hit the same thing, which is cut content. Tetrabit brought it up that opening line of Freddy being, "You're broken," was originally "you're bleeding," and it's like, well, was that the original intent? Did they change it to make it more vague, to tie in more with back lore? Is it an Easter egg? Is it to circumvent censorship? All of that stuff. So, Jocko, I as one of the people who have been brave enough to theorize about this franchise for the last 7 years, what are your thoughts? How does theory crafting, pull in book stuff, cut stuff, does it matter, does it not? What's a good way of using it?
It's complicated because Scott made a post a while ago saying the books and the games are in separate universes, but some of the things can be in a similar situation. It's hard because John made a really good point about the original books, the fourth closet and stuff. Elizabeth being a robot and Henry's daughter being involved as well, and they're very similar. and Afton's plan to keep rebuilding her. It's complicated. The Fazbear Frights stories, spoilers if you haven't read them, it has kind of a similar plot with Afton being rebuilt again. Because I thought originally that the big boss at the end of Security Breach was going to be a massive Afton where all of the old parts are together and put together, but it isn't. It's just old Springtrap. But then you've got the Blob as well, and the Blob's just on another level of complicated. But you can kind of like fit them both in, like, oh, the Blob's similar because, you know, it's a mashup of old animatronics all together. And another thing with the books, the Fazbear Frights, is Elizabeth Afton. She plays a bigger role in Fazbear Frights compared to Afton. So I was trying to fit in, like, is Elizabeth Afton in Security Breach somewhere? Is she tied in with it somehow? Is she influencing Vanessa at all with Glitch Trap and stuff like that? Because, you know, if Glitch Trap got recovered using Springtrap's old chip, you know, can Elizabeth Afton come back as well? Did they find, you know, Scrap Baby's chip as well or whatever? But yeah, the books, I don't even know what to say. I mean, we've already memed about Fazgoo, right? You know, Fazgoo cloning people. Is Vanessa a clone using Fazgoo and stuff like that?
There it is. That's a win.
Yeah, the clone theory. With Fazgoo, right? But I really hope Fazgoo is not involved in the game universe, because Fazgoo is just on another level. You know, you've got the Blob and then you've got Fazgoo, right? It's complicated, but, you know, I think we've got to remember, though, they are, you know, what Scott said, they are in separate universes. There might be some small links and stuff, but they are separate, and we should, you know, keep it that way.
Well, and I think, you know, it's a bit frustrating, I think, for fans of this franchise who don't have the time or interest to reading these stories to understand the levels of parallelism that exist between the games and the books, because it really does vary. There are some, like one of the Fazbear Fright stories is literally the story of FNAF 3. It is a security guard in a Fazbear Frights setting. They bring in an old animatronic that was found in the walls and is, you know, slowly goes crazy as it haunts him throughout the night. It is literally the story of FNAF 3, and you're like, there's definitely parallels that you can draw here between these two things. Meanwhile, you know, you have other elements like Fazgoo, which fortunately don't have any sort of parallels to anything that we've seen, and keep it that way. If anyone who touches this franchise hears us, do not do that. It crosses some arbitrary line that, like, oh yeah, Remnant and spirits and animatronics, fine. Goo that replicates human DNA, get out. GTFO. And then you have middle ground stories, right? Where you have one story where a guy named Jeremy is working in a video game company who is pranked, and one of his co-workers slices his face off by some mysterious killer, has his face sliced off by a mysterious killer. And you're like, oh, that's a parallel to FNAF VR. And so it's tough without reading them and having the full context, and us as people who think about this and consume everything to, like, spread that out to you. So when you say stuff like, hey, there were 4 versions of a robotic kid that grow up and that bleed like a human and lived like a human for multiple years and ate and drank and had friends and had no idea that they're a robot, it seems insane. But it's there in one of the other canons that also has strong similarities to points that we're seeing in the books, or points that we're seeing in the game. And this actually goes back to, and the reason I bring this up is John brought up about Vanny and Vanessa being able to switch on a dime there. One of the things that this game seems to do is incorporate elements from almost every other corner of the franchise. And one of the things that I've been scared to talk about on the channel, because it was so poorly received the first time that we ever talked about it, is the illusion discs, which in the books play actually a really significant role. People are like, well, how can a robot pass as a human? Illusion discs. They make things look blurry. They make things look more believable. They make you feel nauseous. And in Sister Location, you have, you know, your character removing a strange beeping disc from Baby, and it's never explained, and it's just there. And now in Security Breach, you have Vanny, the bunny, hopping around, and when she approaches you, you hear this high-pitched humming noise that I know, Tom, you were a big advocate in all of our conversations saying, that's an illusion disc. Is Vanny using an illusion disc to disrupt or affect Gregory's eyesight, whether he's a kid or a robot? And I'd love for you to talk about that.
Yeah, it was just one of those things that, like, because I know a lot of people were talking about, oh, certain games, like, you know, when you die in this game, you have static, and some people use that, like, you know, you can use that as an argument for being a robot, or you could say, well, it's stylistic because every game has ended in, or most games anyway, not all, but, you know, most of them have ended in static. But that was a very, very strange thing, because no other animatronic has that. No one else in the franchise has ever really had something that does that to us as a player, where we get not only a weird visual, but that high-pitched squeal that was just really uncomfortable to listen to if you had the game too loud. And you just sit there and go, and like you say, like you talked about it in the past with Baby in Sister Location, and I was just sat there just going, the pieces line up for that to make sense. And again, like almost every version, you know, we draw parallels between Vanessa and Elizabeth in one of our theories, and we go, well, if Elizabeth is, you know, also Baby, there's then those parallels, and in every iteration within the books as well, we know that Baby is the one using illusion discs, or Eleanor, or whatever form she takes. And so there was just a lot of little parallels, which again, like the books, you can't say this is canon, this is 100% true to what exactly like for like what's happening, but you go, the fact that there's all these connections just adding together, to me, was just going, it feels like there's something more than just, oh, she's walking around and it's a fun little scary effect. Which, you know, it just, like you said, John, is like, is it a mistake? Is it lore? Is it just a fun feature? But you just sit there and go, with a franchise like this, you have to look at everything critically and go, where does that fit? How does that fit? Why would that fit? And so it would make sense with the instant switching to have that, because it would allow her to do that. Now, we do know she is making a physical costume as well. So you also go, well, could she be using it reverse in the other way? Like, once she's put him in, could she be using the illusion disc to appear like Vanessa to begin with, while she's dressed as Vanny, and then just like, bam, pop up and do that? Could be. Like, it's one of those things where you go, they are such, I hate it as an answer, because like you said, Matt, it's such a Deus Ex Machina, just like, yeah, it's just that, it just solves it. Like, you go, yeah, she just looks like this now, and you go, it's so unsatisfying as like a solution. But like you said, with so many things, the evidence seems to point there for me, and you just go, well, I guess it could be, must be. I'll take that as my answer until a better one shows up.
Right. That makes sense. So, okay, agree to disagree, I guess, with Vanessa Vanny. So great, we're off to a strong start. Mike, I feel like you and I feel the same way about this. Is Michael Afton Freddy in this game?
I think so. Well, I mean, it still like seems like a stretch to say that, because like people that are playing this as their first 5 minutes at Freddy's game, and it seems like in some ways they designed it to be for new people, because you could argue, depending on the theories you believe, that most of the characters in this game are brand new characters, almost like they're starting a fresh chapter in the, you know, in the lore as Steel Wool are taking over a franchise, depending on what you believe. But I would like the idea that Freddy is Michael Afton, because there is also a lot of evidence to support that, like the fact that, you know, it's built over the pizza simulator, you know, pizzeria, so that kind of ties into his last resting place, and the fact that it does have a poetic ending if you think of Freddy as Michael Afton, because of he finally saves a kid, and whether you believe that's actually, you know, his brother or not, it's still he's saving a kid. It's kind of like undoing some of that bad that he did in his own childhood, like sort of rectifying it and closing the book on that chapter of his life. And I think, yeah, it would be very nice if that was the case. Like, I would like to believe it was, but I don't know if that's the story intent on Steel Wool's end. But I do agree with you. I'm gonna say yes on the Michael Afton and Glamrock Freddy thing.
Nice. Docko, thoughts? I know you and I have had some strong disagreements about things. I'm curious where you sit on this one.
I I like it. Yeah, I do think something's going on with Glamrock Freddy. And like what Mike said, not Michael Afton, Super Horror Bro Mike. He said, that if William Afton can come back again and again and again, and he's living in the pizza simulator location just below the mall, surely Michael Afton's spirit is lingering on around there as well, because it's not finished yet, right? And we throughout the games we know the spirits linger if it's still continuing, and William Afton's still there, Glitch Trap's still there, it's all coming back again. So it would be a nice way to bring Michael Afton back. I don't know where Henry is, by the way. I would think Henry would be a bit angry, that all of his plan just got broken down and he's back again. So I don't know where Henry's spirit is.
Henry's like, man, I had that really cool speech at the end of FNAF 6. I dropped the word hell, and it was like, ooh, this pushes the game into mature territory, whatever. And it's like, oh, I burned my daughter to death. Her spirit passes on, and then he's back again. Damn it.
Yeah. But yeah, Michael Afton coming back. I mean, even the reference in the secret room as well with the Michael Afton television and the clock and everything, referencing back to him again. Just also the fact as well that Glamrock Freddy doesn't really know what's going on with himself as well. When we go down into Pizza Simulator, he's just a bit confused, and like he says, his friends are down there. So it does seem like somebody is inside of Glamrock Freddy possessing him. Whether it's Mike or not, it's not fully confirmed, but there is something going on. Like, why can he not be fully hacked by Vanny? Why is he the only one who cannot be fully hacked and possessed? I think that indicates that something is stopping Vanny from doing that.
Like a spirit, a human element.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's some resistance in there. It's not just all programming that Vanny can. If it's just a computer, they can just hack into it. So it's something stopping Vanny from doing that, and it's got to be a spirit. But yeah, I'd say Michael Afton's the biggest possibility. It could just be one of the kids that Vanny killed in the past, and it's possessed Glamrock Freddy, and Glamrock Freddy's like, oh, my friends are down there. Is that referring to the other kids that went missing in the mall? Because the game definitely takes place after something's happened. All the employees have gone and everything, which is why I'm hoping for a prequel to explain some loose ends. But yeah. It could be Mike. It could be another spirit, but it's definitely somebody.
Yeah. And Jordan, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a fan of that notion in general. Ditto to what's been said about there's just weird stuff going on with Glamrock Freddy.
Yeah.
I want to point out again, when he was going down to the FNAF 6 location, that's like half of the lore implications about Glamrock Freddy come from his line right there. He also says, he found himself for the first time when he went down there, which I think is just so, there's something there, right? What else does that mean?
Yeah.
If he was already possessed by the time he went down there, I mean, if he was already possessed by the time he went down there, does that mean that he saw his original body or something? He's like, whoa, I found myself. Probably not. But either way, I think it has human spirit implications.
It's like he took a year off of college to go backpacking through Europe, and he's like, I found myself. I
found myself. I had to go to Europe to come back and find myself.
I understand who I am on the inside now.
Yeah. I'm a robot. Oh, but anyway, yeah, I'm a fan. I like it.
Speaking of spirits being inside of bears, right? So you and I had a similar thought about Cassidy, right? So this is one that kind of gets us into the territory of the arcade cabinets and things like that, which I'd love to discuss, which is, where's Golden Freddy? Should Golden Freddy be in this game? Is Golden Freddy actually the princess inside of Princess Quest, trying to strike down Glitch Trap? You and I came to the same conclusion, so I'd love for you to kind of kick that one off.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that it's very telling now that we've crossed into, with Glitch Trap, we've crossed into the territory of just people getting scanned into games. And so, there's a big question with the Blob as well. And it all ties in. I'll get back to it. But with the Blob, right, there are so many animatronic bodies there that have no reason to be there. you know, the original Bonnie, the original Chica, you know, stuff like that. But in those two specific cases, they were no longer possessed. So my point is, like, they shouldn't be walking around their own. Somebody brought them there. You know, and if it wasn't Vanny, the only other people that we know who've been messing with these animatronics would be the people from the AR emails who were scanning in the chips in order to enhance and create the VR experience. And so if we kind of, I mean, just going off of that speculation, that could be the answer right there. If, you know, Golden Freddy, Cassidy, who, you know, that in and of itself is another theory, but, you know, if Cassidy had gotten scanned in from, let's just say, the original, you know, Fredbear suit, then, you know, that could be why Cassidy is in these games now. And if Cassidy was then scanned into these games, you know, there's Glitch Trap and there's the ultimate fight right there. You know what I mean? We've got the, you know, the hell that Afton's being kept in, that is widely theorized that Cassidy is the one that's, you know, heading that up. So we've already got a conflict between the two that most people believe. And so I feel like thematically that makes a lot of sense. Structurally, it could also make sense with the whole scanning chips in as well. And yeah, we just came to the same conclusion from there. I think that your evidence that you had brought up in your video with the text "It's me" was just like the nail in the coffin for that entire notion.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that that's probably how it happened, and also why it happened.
Well, and it also gets to, and I think this is one of the weird things about this game, right? Because there is so much cut content, some of the storylines seem like they have a starting point, and then they stop, and then they pick up at the very end of the game, right? And so, Tetrabit, you mentioned this earlier, the idea of there were more holes in Monty Golf. There was the Chica thing. And even in the emails that we read and collect throughout the game, there's allusions to, then I played Chica's Feeding Frenzy, and X, Y, and Z happened, and it goes nowhere. And so I'm wondering, from your perspective, like, what exists around those arcade cabinets? Do you have a sense of kind of, was there a progression that could have existed there that might have kind of given more evidence to any of these thoughts?
Maybe initially, I guess, just based on how things are left in the game, I think they were at the very least, at towards the end, they were kind of just there, and they were just kind of extra mini games. And maybe I think there's probably a little bit more implications with Princess Quest, especially the whole Cassidy thing. But I think in terms of Monty Golf and the bowling thing and Chica's Feeding Frenzy, I think just based on how they were left, I think personally, I think they were just extra mini games to add to the game.
Yeah, kind of flesh it out a little bit.
Yeah.
What about you, Dan? What thoughts do you have? I know that you have a kind of idea about what you think this game was before changes were made to kind of get it out the door in time.
As in regards to Princess Quest and this sort of stuff,
or anything,
or just
Dan.
anything?
I just the floor is yours. I haven't heard your voice in a while, and I miss
sorry.
you.
Oh, me, I miss you too.
I miss you. Hey.
Well, we mentioned Henry and where he is, and I've been sitting here just kind of like taking everything in. And granted, I feel like as the editor of the theories, I mostly get the conclusions that are ingested from tons of data that I don't fully know. But if I'm going to take a stab in the dark and put Henry anywhere, I think I put Henry in the Blob. Now,
yeah,
I know
so,
I granted that is a big take, because there's all those animatronics are there, but if you think about like what spirits have been like laid to rest that are, you know, they're at peace, like all of the original animatronics get their redemption in FNAF 3. Baby is, as we've kind of mentioned, it's kind of hard to tell if she ever did or is, but if everyone's coming back from the FNAF 6 ending, Like if Michael's coming back, if baby ends up being Vanessa, like we talked about in one of the, I think it was the second theory we kind of mentioned that's a possibility.
It's a continuum.
Yeah.
If there's like 100 of them, who knows?
Yeah. If
It was
everyone's
the final
coming,
theory, the FNAF final theory part 3.
if everyone's coming back from FNAF 6, like Henry is one that you never hear him die. You never see him die. He dies off camera, essentially. So there's a chance to bring him back. And I think about the ending with Springtrap in the Blob, and I try to think who are, like, obviously everyone wants to destroy Afton. It just generally seems like the consensus besides Vanny, who is most likely trying to bring him back. It's like, well, the kids are rested. I would say that that Cassidy is dealing with Afton virtually through Princess Quest. Because that really seems like where they went with that, and that's how you end up freeing Vanny, is destroying that piece of Afton. So the only piece of Afton that's left is his physical body in the basement. And so while yes, a lot of these random animatronics are there and built into this blob, I mean, Ennard was just a blob to begin with. And everything just seemed to be continuing to be added to him. And if we have, with FNAF 6, the whole idea is you can get, like, different versions of, like, Rockstar Bonnie, Rockstar Freddy, like those. And we already know that they just decided to randomly change things. Why is Baby's mask not Scrap Baby? That sort of thing. So if there's one spirit left and I had to put him somewhere, I put him in the Blob.
The Blob is just the catch-all, all loose ends.
Put it in the Blob.
Just
And anything we don't understand, it's in there.
It's in the Blob.
It's Blob.
Well, and it's one of the things is, like, as you mentioned before, Henry did this whole thing. Everyone dies, and then Afton comes back. I would be hard pressed to think he would rest knowing that that's happening.
Can someone please just use anything other than fire to kill these things? Like, I feel like the fire.
This is the third.
Right,
3 times.
Yeah,
Three
we've tried
times now.
a couple times now. You know, if at first you don't succeed, try again. But at a certain point, you just gotta, like, cut it off and be like, you know what? Maybe there's something else. Silver bullet, stake in the heart, garlic, just literally anything. Come on.
An old priest and a young priest.
Tag team priests. That would be awesome. Maybe that's the next FNAF game. It's literally, instead of, Fredbear, you're climbing into the stomach of, like, an animatronic priest and casting holy water. Like, the power of Christ. So, okay, if Cassidy is kind of in this game and is fighting Glitchtrap, and we do see Vanessa freed if she is one person as opposed to 2 twins, because again, it all ties to each other, and so if one of these things falls apart, literally all the other dominoes fall with it, which sucks. So assuming that Vanny and Vanessa are the same thing, and that they have Glitchtrap in their head, and that Cassidy has gone through these games to delete Glitchtrap, is this the last time that we've seen Glitchtrap? Or, because thing had a lot of build-up in FNAF VR, only to, like, not have any screen time whatsoever. So I'm curious, just out to the room, are we done with Glitchtrap? Is this the end of Glitchtrap's story?
No.
I want it to be.
Well, the other spirits don't
Tom
get
just
to
wants
rest
all
until
of
they're
FNAF
done.
to end. Tom's just like, please. No,
Please,
it's,
let me
it's
go.
the end
Let
of
me
all
get
of them.
Out of the FNAF dungeon, please. Let me leave.
No, but everyone seems pretty convinced that the glitch is back.
Yeah, I think the biggest problem I had with Security Breach from because I really enjoyed the game, but the story for me was a bit of a mess. And I think the biggest defender was that Glitchtrap wasn't really present at all.
Yeah.
I loved that character in Help Wanted because it was so like creepy.
Yeah.
And I wish they'd just brought him back, at least, even if it had to be cut for time reasons. I wish they'd put something in there that kind of connected him more than just these kind of theories we put together.
Yeah.
Because anyone can put together like a theory connecting a game to the last one.
Wow.
With like little sort of tidbits of
Low-key
evidence.
burn. It's fine. I'm not offended. It's okay. Anyway.
I'm talking about myself as well. Like, we've all done it. We've had to because we haven't come up like a
We
fully
have
fleshed
to.
out story. We
Literally
have to. And I think it would be nice if they'd put a little bit of glitch trap in just so that we can properly connect it. You know, like, and conclusively say this is a continuation of Help Wanted. You know, because I mean it is, but it sometimes doesn't feel like it is. But I do think he'll come back because he has to. Really, he was such a prominent part of Help Wanted.
I hear he always does. He always.
Yeah, he always does.
It's a rumor.
Rumor has it. He's got a solid brand working right now. It's like, that guy.
Yeah, I
always
mean,
comes back.
there are like, because as John sort of mentioned earlier, there's Tape Girl from FNAF VR who is totally like was a one and done sort of character to that degree of like we saw her progression go through from I'm finding all these weird things and suddenly go don't like stay away from them. Oh, actually, maybe you should play them. Maybe that's a good idea for you. And then that kind of just leads like it led us to Vanessa and all the stuff that we've theorized about that, but she's kind of just left unanswered. I know the voice actor hasn't returned either. So, you know, we've looked at that in the past. So that's just something to call out. But yeah, it feels like, and I know again, in this theory we've just released, we theorized about, oh no.
There it is.
I told you.
Brought to you by Lumix.
I told you. I was, it's been so good for so long and I was waiting for it.
Hashtag not spawn.
Hashtag not spawn.
Could be
I
spawn.
apologize to everyone. Yeah. But it was that idea of, like, we talked about Gregory being patient 46, which is, you know, a whole controversial theory in and of
Ooh,
itself.
that's the next one I want to ask about.
Yeah, and but potentially patient 46 is the one doing the hacking and the communications with Vanessa. There is the alternative, which is that idea that there is someone at the top of Fazbear Entertainment who is just kind of like, yeah, let's build a megaplex on top of the old pizzeria. That's probably fine. Oh, more dead kids? Yeah, we'll just keep going. That's totally fine. And you just go, then there could, and that very well could just be this new character that's going to come out, and that's going to be, you know, the next big bag is the new CEO, or it could be another glitch trap because we don't know how much of an influence he had on Fazbear Entertainment as a whole. If he's made it to the top, that would explain those weird decisions to build on top of FNAF 6 where Afton happens to be.
That's just corporate greed, man. Saving the money.
The true villain of FNAF is capitalism.
Yeah. I mean, there is a degree of that in there, though, because by all means, Fazbear Entertainment should not exist.
Sure.
It should be like the lawsuits and everything should have buried that company years ago, right? So I really love the idea of just Fazbear, the complete company, just slowly being corrupted and taken over by Glitch Trap. And
This is the
they
Marxist
just
reading of the the Marxist interpretation of it.
That's great.
Hold up. Is the true villain capitalism, or is it the consumers that have shown themselves willing to go back over and over again to patronize a corrupt business that even had its own like horror attraction about like, look at us, we killed kids, and they're like, yeah, that's I want to be scared by that.
It's
We're getting
all
too
about
meta now, though.
It's all about those darn kids going into those closed Fazbears.
Yeah.
Sorry, John, you were gonna say something.
On the topic of FNAF 6 being over the mall, just some weird things to point out. In the messages that we find out throughout Security Breach, we find out that the recommendation for Vanessa came from the top.
The top.
And so that maybe implies that Vanessa is related to someone that is the head of this company. And I believe in the FNAF AR emails, I might be wrong, she pretends to be a contractor for the mall, like to figure out like what's safe to build on and all that kind of stuff. So maybe it was her plan the whole time to build this mall on top of the FNAF 6 pizzeria to bring everyone back. That's a really weird way to do it, but I'm just throwing that out there.
Sure. No, that's very
Vanny's the
Still out there.
CEO.
Danny's the CEO.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just as if not more plausible than what theory we posited, which was like, oh, Gregory, who's patient 46, who's also, a robot reincarnation of Crying Child, is hacking emails so that way she gets hired on by the company. you know, like it's all very stretchy at this point, right? It's all very nebulous. Which brings us to our hot button topic. Hey, Dawko, is Gregory a robot? And is Gregory the crying child? And is Gregory patient 46? Comments. You have 30 seconds.
What do I even say?
I'd like to read my prepared statement for this moment.
I didn't have time for one. You only gave me a week. I needed a month.
I in no way am affiliated with the opinions of game theory.
After watching your recent video,
Oh, there's that 5-minute shameless plug. There it is. See?
Yeah, recent video
Check
live
him off
right
the
now.
contract. He did it.
I like your ideas about it. You know, that hidden room that we see with the Afton family robot in there, the robot family, and all the sticky notes and stuff like that. Yeah, there are some big indicators that Gregory could be a robot. However, the idea of Gregory being, you know, the other patient, and he's secretly evil, you know, killing therapists behind Vanessa's back.
Sure.
I don't see how that could tie into Gregory. You know, the idea was, you know, him being reunited with everybody again, and I just don't see how he would not know about Afton or anything and stuff like that. Unless it's just like a confused robot where originally he was programmed to, you know, keep Vanessa safe and, you know, keep it, you know, under the rug. But it's there's too much to say in just this live stream because it's just so complicated. Gregory being a robot could work, but there's, like you said in your video, there's so many things that can argue against that, and there's so many arguments that can support the theory. And like I said at the start, like, if Gregory was a robot, that would be fine as long as it's explained in a good way. Because if there's no reason for Gregory to be a robot, then, you know, I think it just needs some good backup. Because Gregory himself, I think he's a great character, and him just being like a homeless kid, just getting lost in the mall, and you know, he's just there at the wrong time. I think that would develop his character better than just him, you know, oh, he's a robot, you know, the end, right? Yeah. So it could work, but I wouldn't be happy with it if I was to be honest.
Well, and I think that's one of the things that Bear is mentioning for us too, right? And I think Jordan called this out, where like, we like solving puzzles. Like, that is what I love. That's why I've been doing this for 10 years. And I think that's why FNAF is so fun, because it's this never-ending puzzle that historically there's a lot of pieces, but for the most part you get them all to fit cleanly together. And you're like, okay, there's like 3 pieces over here that didn't quite fit, but we'll save them for the next game and maybe they'll fit. This one feels like you have a chunk of puzzle here, a chunk of puzzle here, a chunk of puzzle here, and you try to merge them into one cohesive thing, and it just doesn't stick. You know, it's like 3 individual puzzles that don't form a cohesive vision, or at least as I understand it. And I think one of the things that people get wrong about our channels is that, you know, we necessarily like every theory that we do. I agree with you, Dawko. Like, do I love the idea that the crying child is also a robot reborn as a boy named Gregory who might also be homeless? Like, no, I don't. I think it's really complicated. But do I think it's the strongest narrative that ties together the evidence points that the game has presented us with, as I understand it, and, you know, as the team overall understands it? Yeah, I do. Yeah. Are there holes to that? Absolutely. Why would that person also be going to a therapy session? You know, like, it's... But without introducing some other unseen entity, other unseen character that does kind of serve as a deus ex machina to tie everything together, that's what we got, right? We've got like the Chekhov's gun, and we got to work with the pieces that we have, and that's it. And am I adamant about making sure that my theory is the right theory? No. Like, would I like it? Do I like it when we get it right? Absolutely. And do I necessarily like the solution? No, but we're just trying to solve the puzzle, right? Yeah. And I think in this case, that's where the puzzle has led me to. But I'm open to other suggestions.
I've got a question for you.
Yeah, Mike.
Do you think there's any possibility, and do you think it would be a good idea? This is more just sort of generally speaking for the future of Five Nights at Freddy's, but Steelwall are establishing new characters in order to tell a greater story over the next sort of decade of FNAF or whatever. Because that's the only thing because I sort of disagree with the robot theory, but I watched your most recent video and I was like, wow, that's actually a really compelling argument. I thought you did a really good video there.
Thank you.
And like Dorko, I'm kind of disagree with the second half of the patience part, but the first half I thought was brilliant in terms of how you logically put it all together, you and the team who wrote that. But what I was thinking is that it would be kind of cool, like Dorko was just saying, if it could be a new character, just like a kid who now has met up with Vanessa and they've gone off and it starts like a new storyline, and perhaps the connecting pieces of that could be William and Michael Afton, perhaps, if that is the case, but it allows for like a new door to be opened and potentially some new and interesting character development to occur that can branch away from the story that kind of felt like it had closed with FNAF 6 to me. I thought that was a good closing point for that story.
Yeah, I'm 100% on board with that. And I don't know if people picked up on this in our theories, but, Tom and I made sure that we ended each of them with kind of like and that's the end of Cassidy's story, so that spirit is off the table. And, oh, well, isn't this a nice ending for the 3 Afton children? Well, that's probably the end we'll hear of them. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Hope you're paying attention, Steelwool. I think that is what we've been trying to convey to everyone who kind of touches this game series at this point is I don't think I'm alone in saying that a lot of the fan base is cool, we know these guys, we're familiar with all these personalities, we want more in this franchise. And I think everyone really rallying behind Gregory as a character is a testament to that. He was just a cool, interesting character that you wanted to hang out with more. He's nuanced without being beat you over the head with his characterization. Who's this kid that would just lie about killing off animatronics, and what vendetta does he have? There's mystery there without him necessarily being tied to a spirit from the past 20 years and has reappeared multiple times. I like that. So yeah, do I? And it gets into the question too of what is symbolic in this series and in this storytelling versus what is literal, right? Because you look at the ice cream ending where they're sitting on the hill and you have Freddy's head and Gregory and Vanessa sitting there peacefully, and it's that seems like a really intentional reference to moments of the bite of 83 and baby scooping Elizabeth Afton. It feels very intentional. But, is that just literally the spirits of the kids infused in these characters? Or is it just a symbolic gesture for, they have parallels to the past but aren't necessarily attached to it? It's one of those franchises where kind of both interpretations are open, and we'll see where they kind of take it. But I agree 100% with you, Mike. I would love there to just be an infusion of other characters. And going back to what we said earlier about Glitch Trap, I think Glitch Trap I want him to come back, because this to me felt like the perfect opportunity to introduce a new main villain for the series while still keeping it tied to the lore that came before, right? It's not Afton, but it's the school of Afton. It's the cult of Afton. Yeah. It's serial killers inspired by this maniac from the 1980s and wanting to carry on his legacy or wanting to kind of achieve what he achieved, right? And so for Glitch Trap to be the vehicle for that to happen, great, let that happen. But I don't want Glitch Trap to die, because I think he offered really interesting opportunities to stay connected to the past while moving it forward into the future.
Yeah, and because before, the animatronics were always in the sort of physical world, and it was spirits inside suits, and this kind of allows it to take a more current approach with it, where it goes into the digital realm, and that's a cool way they could branch out the story as well. So I like that idea as well.
Yeah, I think we have to carry on. Sorry.
No, don't go for it.
I think we have to remember as well that it's not over. So, Steel will have already announced that they're going to be doing DLC in the future, which, they could go into more depth. Who Gregory is, is the DLC going to be a sequel where, maybe Gregory and Glamrock Freddy do go back to the mall. Maybe Glitch Trap's still around. They might have burnt down Afton's body, but Glitch Trap could still be there, trying to build it back up again. And it really depends as well on which ending actually happened, because we've got like 6 endings. Which one actually happened? Which is the canon ending, right? Because if the Afton ending was canon, does that mean where's Vanessa? There's no sign of Vanessa in that ending. So what happens to her? Is Glitch Trap still influencing her? All because Afton has been burnt down into a corpse and gone now forever, hopefully. Glitch Trap and Vanessa would still be around because we didn't do the Princess Quest ending in that ending, right? So,
That's true.
It really depends what happens in the future. I'm just saying, all of these theories that we have right now might possibly be answered in the future DLC, prequel or sequel.
Yeah. Dan, you were going to say something?
Well, it feels so, it feels really nice and clean when you think about the ending with all 3 of them on the hill being the true ending. And more importantly, letting them just be who they are. Gregory, Glamrock, Freddy, who's hacked, or, maybe it is Michael Afton did end up being in Glamrock, and then Vanessa just being Vanessa. And letting those 3 be our protagonists going into any future sequels against Glitch Trap.
Yeah.
There's something really nice, something that sounds really good about using that as kind of our base for this next, I think we mentioned it before the stream, this phase 2 of the FNAF game universe that we're going into. It's after FNAF VR, it really felt like it was a great chance to take to just not really hit the reset button, because I know we were throwing around the idea of it FNAF VR rebooting the series, but just kind of going FNAF VR sets us up for new characters, a villain in an evolved form that we've been used to for a while now. And if that's the second game in this new phase of FNAF, that feels really good. That is a really good base to start on. Just let all of the Afton stuff just kind of be done. That stuff, just put it away. Don't even bring it back as Easter eggs. Just let it be.
Yeah.
Let the what was Old Man Consequences?
Leave
line?
the demons to his demons.
Exactly.
Thanks, Tom.
I got you.
This is why I edit.
The one thing I want to throw out there, and one thing that we're always scared to do on the channel, is put together a timeline at this point, because it's so finicky with what happened when and what events were concurrent. One thing in Tetrabit, your video, that really stuck out to me though is apparently bears are extinct in this at this point in time. Is that true? Did I hear that correctly?
Yeah.
What's that all about?
So there was a couple of scrapped audio lines. So the hand unit would, or there just some announcer would be kind of giving Faz facts while you ride the elevators, I guess, to kind of help time pass by. And one of them, just casually just says that. I think the line is that bears used to attack, or the bears' number 1 favorite food is pizza. They attack the most pizza delivery trucks until they went extinct. So it's just a little line they just casually, I mean, they didn't sneak it in there because they did remove it eventually, but
sure.
I guess they were supposed to, it's supposed to imply that whenever this takes place, bears are just no longer around. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty bizarre.
That has pretty severe timeline implications, I would think.
Yeah.
Bears are extinct. Weird. That's going to throw off the ecosystem. Real quick, I don't want to spend too long on this stuff because we've already talked about a lot of things, but we haven't really talked about Patient 46 or the Blob. Mike, you brought up 46, kind of disagreeing with our theory, which, hey, more power to you. I have no stake in this race. I agree. So
You probably know more than I do about a series. To me, it doesn't it didn't fit together quite for me. But
no. So what are your thoughts there? Is it just another character, or who is it?
I thought both of those recordings were when they were addressing Vanny and Vanessa, depending on whether she was under her glitch trap state or her Vanessa state. So I assumed that, you know, when that's what it was, and it was the therapist basically, you know, speaking to two different alters essentially, you know.
Yeah.
And obviously you have to address each one
Yeah,
differently, don't
individually.
you? And because different sort of personality there. So that's kind of what I took from it. And then when you said that, I built all my theories around the idea that she was under her glitch trap sort of possession state, and then her actual Vanessa state, which was just her normal persona.
Yeah.
And so I thought that's what those recordings were. So when I heard you talking about it was actually potentially Gregory, I was like, well, I never considered that. Like, and you could be right quite easily. But just to me, like, it was too much of a jump from where I'd based all of my information up to that point. So that's kind of why I just disagreed there. But to me, that kind of, those recordings show quite nicely how Vanessa was sometimes under the control of Glitch Trap, and how she was very different and quite volatile when she was under his control. A lot more aggressive as well.
Yeah. John, do you have any thoughts? I'm curious.
Your video was so good. Like the
Man,
first half.
There you go.
It is on the Game Theorists channel right now.
They should like and subscribe while they're here.
You deserve it. Anyways, I was convinced, bro. You convinced me. I was like, this is the crown child. But you said something like Gregory was the one murdering the therapist. That's something I can't really wrap my head around.
It's fine.
Yep, us neither.
But
I'm just connecting to the dots. It's like, well, if this domino falls, then by proxy this domino has to fall. By proxy this domino has to fall. Yeah.
Totally.
So like, I don't disagree. Yes.
do not blame you. But on just throwing, I like to put different perspectives out
It's
there.
the VR
Like,
sisters, isn't it?
If it's Tape Girl, if it's Tape Girl, I mean, Tape Girl was already possessed by William Afton. William Afton is someone who would be prone to murder.
Sure.
And it could be very well possible that the therapist is speaking right to William Afton himself. And I don't know. It's just one of those things. It could be a possibility, but I think the clearest answer is probably that patient 46 is Gregory. But I think there's some key things to point out that could link Tape Girl to this game a little bit more, even though she's not very much referenced at all ever again after her. But it's I do find it weird that I mean, it is revealed that patient 46 is the one doing the manipulating. And we do know, or we theorize, that Tape Girl was manipulating Vanessa in FNAF VR in order to, free Glitch Trap.
That's fair.
So that could have carried over. I don't know, just pointing out some things for the group. But yeah, I don't know.
Jordan, what do you think? You're new to the FNAF Theory game.
I am new to the FNAF Theory game, but
What
I
fresh take do you
can't. What fresh? It's not really a take. It's just like an observation that bothers me. Kind of like that Vanny Vanessa ending there. Is the numbers with client 46 and 71? You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yep.
The way that 46's sessions take off right after 71, and then 71's sessions end at 46. They go up to 45. I just think it's a weird kind of duality between the two patients. That, again, it's definitely weird with the number. Out of all the numbers, they could have picked any of them. They picked those, Like, is it actually connecting them, or is it actually just like, well, we accidentally used the same numbers? You know what I mean? But if I had to I had so many thoughts that could have gone in so many different directions about 46, just like everybody else here. But the two biggest contenders for me were always either Vanny, and of course, I came from the background of Vanny and Vanessa being potentially two different people, but that's neither here nor there. Or Gregory, just because of the biggest thing about client 46 is just the way the therapists each talk to client 46 in the same method, and there's stark differences from Vanessa. And then I also think it's very telling that they do tell us that one of them is like Vanessa name drop, and they leave the other one specifically for you to be like, okay, who is that? Again, that could go literally either way. It could be a strange kind of duality where it's like, it's because they're two alters and you're just supposed to put the pieces together. Although that does seem a little easy to me, but that could be the way they were going with it. But those are my two biggest contenders for 46.
Yep.
Is either Vanny or and the thing is, that kind of lines up with what John was saying with Tape Girl and the VR sisters. Sorry, I'm attributing that to you now. It could all just tie in to Tape Girl, which could also tie into Vanny, which could also you know what I mean? It's the dominoes.
Yeah. Okay.
Anyway.
Tom, this is your chance. I gave Dan his chance to vent earlier. I know that Patient 46 has been a rough one for you, and we've had a lot of extended conversations.
Hey!
Oh, there he is. He's like, wait, they're paying attention to me.
Quick, get me out, get me out. Don't make me talk about
no,
it.
feel free to vent. This is your cathartic time. Please.
Oh gosh, I went down the rabbit hole on this one. I looked at everything. I looked at Vanny, I looked at Baby, I looked at, could Vanny, again, because it even linked to that idea, could Vanny and Vanessa be two different people? And then I went down the rabbit hole, is Vanny actually Baby? And that whole, there is some little points that kind of go, oh, maybe there's that. And again, it comes up illusion discs. You go, oh, well, then looking like a child when they're not really a child works. But it was just, every answer I came to just felt like, the pieces don't add up. They just don't. You go, like the Vanny theory, it was just very much for me, it was just, but we're clearly talking to a child of some kind that is very clearly referenced in a couple of places. And so for me, it was a bit of a hard pill to swallow to go, oh yeah, it's her. But then, like you said about the duality of the whole thing, they very purposely juxtapose these two characters as being opposites. And so you go, and those opposites, so we're leaning, when we leaned into Gregory going, he's Patient 46, and look at all these references to it being a child and these things, you go, but then all the duality elements, like the fact Patient 46 doesn't like flowers, the base, the care thing does work, but you go, but the liking of candy again leads to the post-it room, but then there are still the flowers and things like that don't mean anything. They're just kind of there then. And so it was just that no answer, and again, could be a mysterious new character, it could be Tape Girl. I also think with the Vanny thing, for me, it was that sense of like you said, Jordan, it was just too easy. It was because they very explicitly up to that point made Vanny and Vanessa seem like they're the same person, and so to then go, oh well, it's just that, you go, yeah, well, we knew that. That's not a new thing. That's not a secret, as it were. Whereas, revealing Gregory or revealing Baby or whoever, it's a bit more like, oh, that's a bit twisty, that's a bit new, that's a bit different. But as we've talked about this whole game, just not everything fits together, and it's just such a big rabbit hole that you go down, and there is no, you sit there going, right, what's the answer? And I'm like, I don't know, I've tried everything. I'm looking in the books, I'm looking in the games, I'm looking just sort of everywhere at the spin-offs, and it's just there was no answer I could see. And honestly, my best guess was just that sense of maybe it is just meant to be this mysterious character that will get revealed next time as our big bad, and it's gonna be this was Patient 46 all along, and there'll be hints that link us back to that, and you go, oh man, you seeded that information back then. But because it was so obvious and in plain sight, it wasn't like, oh, we've picked up these tiny little clues and we've suspected there's this new third character that might be coming. It was so in your face, it then just felt like, well, now I'm annoyed because now there's no conclusion. But as Dorco has said, the DLC's coming, and who knows, we could get those answers sort of coming to us then. They could all link together, or Still Will sees all our theories and goes, let's screw with Matt Pat and just change everything.
Since you brought up the DLC, and since I want to kind of wrap things up here pretty quickly, quickly around the horn, what is the one thing that you want to see out of the DLC? And presumably it should be coming out soon. It's right, Mr. FNAF News? It should be right around the corner. Where's
that patch first.
Where's my DLC, John?
It's coming. It's somewhere in here. But
under the bed.
they gotta release the patch first.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So one thing that you want out of it, Dan, just down the horn, Dan.
A finished game.
Not to be soft block.
If anything, I really like something that Daco mentioned before, but like a prequel kind of showing what happened before all of this. I really like that idea a lot.
Cool. Tom.
I would really like to see the arcade machines pay off, particularly Chica's, because we get messages about that. I'd really love to see that pay off. And, you know, who knows? Maybe there's a secret 4-star ending we can get next time, which will definitively be true. And that will just be like, yep, 100% answers everything. Or not answers everything, because it's FNAF, but you know.
I gotta agree. For DLC, I coincide with Tom here. I think that there's a lot of loose threads in there, especially with Monty Golf and the weird numbers that appear in Monty Golf. It feels like that is code waiting to happen, that meant to be input into like the Mylar balloons that are in like the daycare area. Like that's what I would like most, outside of, you know, not losing 4 hours of progress due to a glitch. You know, that's a win. Jordan.
More backstory on those animatronics. You know,
In
Roxy,
general,
all that stuff. I just want more,
called
man.
the first 8 games.
Not those animatronics, the Glamrock animatronics.
Okay.
You know, I just want to know why, you know, their personality quirks are the way they are.
Yeah.
You know, they were so personal in this game, like, you know, so loud. I just want to know.
Yep. John.
I want to see Vanessa's perspective. I want to be playing as Vanessa, and I want to see fully animated endings, and I think it'd be cool to see more of the daycare. I think the daycare was the best part of the game, in my opinion, and I feel like it was underutilized a little bit.
Agree, 100%. Let's see. Let's go to Dawko.
I like that Vanessa idea. I think that's great,
That's
and
cool.
I think that can lead to a prequel still as well. I'd love a prequel where we're playing as a missing kid that's not Gregory, kind of like Little Nightmares, where you play as a different kid and it's a bad ending. You get caught. I'd love to be a missing kid roaming around the mall. I would like to actually see Glamrock Freddy being like hacked as well, and maybe like seeing Glamrock Bonnie helping the kid instead or something, just because something's happened before you know, the Gregory events, right? I feel like it's actually a couple of years after, you know, just seeing them all before all of this happened, and seeing Glitch Trap. I think with a prequel as well, we can see more Glitch Trap and Vanessa's origins as well. So yeah, a prequel.
It is really interesting how all the FNAF endings seem to be the bad endings. The canonical ones seem to be bad, right? Outside of FNAF 6, where it burns down. But, like, FNAF 2 leads to the Bite of 87, basically. It ends, like, right there. FNAF 3, I guess you burn down and you win over Springtrap. But FNAF 4, that, like, a kid dies. Sister location, you get scooped, which is not a good ending. You know, FNAF 7, FNAF VR, you have the tape possessing you and taking over your mind or whatever. So, Glitch Trap winning. So, it's a lot of, like, bad... you lose endings are actually the good endings in these games, which is really interesting. Tetrabit, what do you want to see included from all that stuff that you've discovered?
Sure. At best, I would love to see like an extra chapter to the game, either a prequel or a sequel. And I love the idea of controlling Vanessa or Vanny. I think there were some scrapped dialogue bits in the game that I believe suggested that might have been a plan, or it will be a plan in the future. At the very least, I would love to see survival mode fully get realized in the game. I think that'd be an awesome addition.
I was going to say, it sounds like it's a really cool extra mode.
Yeah, I think it just add a lot of replay value to the game. Like, even if you just want to go for like time attack or score, because in the game itself, it had a much more focus on score as well. Each different gift you could collect had a different point value that you could get from it. So if you like speedrunning time attack or score attack runs, I think it would offer a lot of replay value for sure.
Yep, cool. And then Mike.
Kind of just echoing what the last couple of guys have been saying. Basically, I think a prequel would be good. With, like we've been talking about these recordings, just sort of fully confirm who Fanny and Vanessa are, if they're separate people, if they're the same character. And I think it'd be interesting to play from her perspective and show how she put the Glitch Trap virus into the mall to begin with. You could also elaborate then on the missing kids and just any of those like dangling like sort of bits of unfinished plot from the game. You could just use it as a great excuse to actually elaborate on them, and then the game makes sense suddenly, and it's like great. And it's like, way.
That's cool. And then lastly, as we wrap things up here, I'm curious, what do you want the next... Obviously, this is a big point. We've said it a couple times that this is a big point for the FNAF series. what's the next game look like? Obviously, this was a big jump ahead in terms of like, it's an open world free roam kind of. I mean, you were on rails and stuff, but it was a very different game from the point and click resource management horror stuff that had really come before. And then you also have like VR in there as its kind of own thing too. Do you want it to kind of stay in this new direction? Do you want it to scale back to kind of point and click? Do you want FNAF World again? Like, what sort of game do you want out of this franchise moving forward? Bigger, smaller, same? Where are we at? John?
I think this was not in horror terms. I think this was the FNAF 3 of the new franchise, because it wasn't the scariest for me, and I think it would be really cool to see them heavily lean more into the horror elements. I've been saying this for a while, and I know Daco agrees with this. A Fredbear Family Diner game is something I've been wanting since I was 15 years old. And I think it'd be really cool to see that, even though we should wrap up Afton at this point. But yeah, I'd love to see a Fredbear Family Diner game, if not a newer game more heavily leaning into horror.
Daco, you agree, or what would you like?
I'd like a sequel to Security Breach.
Okay.
I feel like a prequel would be good for the DLC, and then it leads to the sequel, right? Again, depending what ending happened in Security Breach, it would be great if Glitch Trap was still there, and we go back to the mall or something a few years later, and it's like changed completely, and we go back to kill Glitch Trap or something. I'm still a bit weary on whether this is a different subject, but if Glitch Trap is William Afton, or is Glitch Trap, something that was created from all of the agony and what's happened with FNAF in general.
Yeah.
But yeah, a sequel for me. I'd love to see another FNAF VR game, like FNAF VR sequel or something. That would be cool. FNAF World 2 is going out there, but FNAF World 2 would be pretty cool.
The sequel that everyone wants, but is too ashamed to admit.
Yeah.
Dan, what sort of game do you want?
Okay.
Since you have such strong opinions about this one, go for it.
Okay, no, sequel. All right, it's going to be a sequel, and it's going to be Gregory, Glamrock Freddy, rebuilt, and Vanessa, and they're essentially going to be fighting Glitch Trap in like a Ghostbuster style form. Like, they form a team, they get a van, they travel the world, putting a stop to Glitch Trap. Amazing. Best game ever.
10 out of 10.
10 out of 10.
Someone called Jeff Keighley Game of the Year.
That's for you.
That's amazing. I love it. Jordan.
Well, lore implications aside, I think like John was saying, I'd like to see them take the gameplay in this direction, just more refined, find more ways to make it scarier, kind of bring it back to its roots a little bit. But if we're talking about lore, sequels sound awesome, but I would love, like I was saying, like a prequel or something like that, because like you were saying, the puzzle still doesn't fit, And that kind of bothers me. So I would like to see a prequel as far as lore is concerned. And I like the direction they're going in.
Tom, I know Tom's answer, which is no more games. He's like, please end this.
So I can go.
Tom just wants more books to read. That's what you want, Tom.
Oh, yeah, totally more books. I'm very much looking forward to Tales of the Pizzaplex.
Yes.
Very much, obviously. With Robot Child on the front, but hey ho. No, in terms of games like you said, with lore implications of a prequel, that would be amazing. Like, I think, because I think it was Dorco in your interview with Scott, actually, he talked, you got to the point of talking about sort of Ultimate Custom Night and FNAF 6 as like his kind of, the games round off, I was improving things in the story or the games up until that point, and then that was kind of an ending of an era, which was really nice. And so the story by Ultimate Custom Night kind of on the whole made sense. Like, it's FNAF, it's never going to be completely, but it was a nice ending. Yeah. And so like you could go, right, that's the end, and probably most people would be like, yeah, that works, okay, fine. And so adding these new games, it's like, actually we now need to, if this is going to be the end of the era, like we've sort of talked about on our theories about Crying Child and Cassidy and Vanessa, you go, it would be nice to have that fully wrap up and make sense if we're going to go in a new direction with new characters and new things. But in terms of, I would love, again, and this is super ambitious because, we know what the state this game was in when it came out, but it was that sense of, I'd love it to be more open world than it was, have the ability to really go, you can do this almost in any order. You've got your start point, your end point, and everything in between is totally fluid. You could put side quests in or little extra puzzles to solve. But the scariness would need to go up. I loved, you know, the daycare scene is the scariest part of that game by a long way.
Yeah.
Sure.
And I think it was in Tetra, I think it was in one of your games or one of your videos. Sorry, you showed the Pizzaplex and it was totally pitch black other than the neon, and you just go, that looks really cool. Actually, that adds just a level of something to the game. That suddenly means you don't know what's coming around every corner. You can't see Roxy from up top because, you know, when you're looking down because it's pitch black. So you just kind of have to hope and listen and play the game stealthily rather than just go, I can run around. This is fine.
The staff bots prove no threat to me. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Tetrabit, let's go to you.
Sure. I think it's time we got a Five Nights at Freddy's Literature Club dating sim game.
Nice.
Yeah. DDLC crossover of the year.
No, but in all seriousness, I mean, I like the way that Security Breach went. I think just again, more refinement would have been good in terms of like maybe like a different gimmick. I know like using Freddy was kind of the main gimmick this time, but kind of expand on that outside of just using him to open doors and stuff. And just to add to what Tom said, I think like more scariness. I think that was part of the plan, like we saw with the darker Pizzaplex, stuff like that. I think there was just a lot there to support that, as well as making it more open world. I think that was initially on the table, like we saw in one of the trailers. You could have two party passes at once, implying that you had a choice on which door you wanted to open. So I think that was on the table before. They kind of just decided to make it more linear. Sure, they give you branching paths here and there, but I think initially the plan was to have it more open world. But yeah, so stuff like that, just kind of refine what they were going with Security Breach, I think would be cool for the sequel.
Well, also, not to linger on it, but in your video too, you saw that there might have been a time mechanic, right? Where like time might have passed in real time or something, as opposed to you hit a specific story beat and time moves forward an hour.
Yeah, 100%. So just like in the final game, time kind of goes up every 15 minutes, half an hour when you reach certain plot points. Based on stuff we've seen in the trailers, there's like 12:09 a.m. and the player was already in Monte Golf in 9 minutes. And this is again something that was seen as a feature in Security Breach. I mean, in the survival mode. Again, suggesting that survival mode had a lot of the mechanics that were originally planned for the game. Where in that mode, time actively goes, and you can actually set if you want it to be like 1 in-game hour. You can set if you want it to be, I think, 10 minutes, half an hour, or 1 hour. So you can have it minute-to-minute parity. Cool. So yeah, there's another thing that just got changed.
Nice. That's awesome. And lastly, Mike.
I'm kind of going to disagree with what Tom has said.
That's fine. I do it all the time. You're totally fine.
Be more open world, because I think that was the biggest flaw of Security Breach for me. It was too open. I want it to be more like an Outlast or an Alien Isolation game, like more like people have said, scarier, but more linear and set piece driven and to the point. So you go through it. It's like a tight 6-7 hour story. You know, very sort of narrative driven. That's what I'd like from Steelwall to continue the story. But I reckon there's like a real opportunity to do like what Scott's doing with a fanverse and bring in really talented people working in the fan community to film, to like make up little remote development teams, even just one development team, and make really polished versions of Scott's original style of game to try out new like story experimentation on the side. Those could be like annual releases, like one a year. Test out like new lore, explore new areas of the Five Nights at Freddy's, and try like stuff like the books, experimental stuff in both smaller games. Then use these big like games from Steelwall every 3 or 4 years to come out, really get the time they need, and tell like the greater story. And that's what I would do. Yeah. If I was in charge of FNAF, that's what I would do with it.
Sure. No, and I it's funny because my thought is kind of largely the same as yours, which is for me, I think the next step, or maybe the interim step before the next like big release, is releasing an Andy's Apple Farm style game where it's going back to just like the pixels and the like creepy aesthetics and kind of stark atmosphere that those have. I don't want the title Five Nights at Freddy's at all. I want it to be Andy's Apple Farm. I want it to be like pizza adventure,
Yeah.
whatever, generic
Yeah.
branded, like you, kind of like Doki Doki, right? You get into it, you don't know what you're getting. It's like, oh, this is kind of a creepy pixel game. Ooh, it's kind of spooky. Ooh, I wonder what's going on here. Last thing that you see in the game is a purple sprite comes out and kills you,
Yeah.
or an animatronic shows up and you're like, oh, and then the title card slams right before the credits roll, and it's Five Nights at Freddy's Pizza Adventure or something like that. And it's like, oh man, I didn't know that I was playing a Five Nights at Freddy's game, but now as I look back, I see why this made sense. It told me a different story. It felt fresh. It felt new. It felt scary. And now I'm excited because it tied back into this franchise that I know and love.
The PT route.
Kind of, yeah.
How,
I mean,
yeah,
honestly,
how PT was then the big slam of Silent Hills, then Konami killed it.
Right, exactly.
It's like, yeah.
I think at this point, you know, people will play a indie horror game, and if like someone seeded it out into the universe, and people are like, "Oh, did you see this? Did you see?" Like, it would find a voice without the Five Nights at Freddy's branding anyway, as long as they put it in the right places, and that like twist reveal at the end. I think it would really help revitalize and get people really excited about, like, oh man, now it could be anything. FNAF could be disguised anywhere, which is really cool.
Yeah.
It's also a good way to test, like Mike said, new ideas, new characters, new concepts, and then roll them up into, you know, whatever the next main series releases. So, okay. With that being said, we have been talking about this for way too long. And it's Saturday, and I've got a script that I got to finish writing. So thank you guys so much for joining me today, this Saturday. Shout out to Dan and Tom and Jordan and John and Dawko and Tetrabit Gaming and Mike. As I go through the line here, thank you all for joining me. If you are not familiar with any of their content, please go and make sure that you check out their stuff. Like I said, everyone's approaching this franchise with a very unique take, doing their own unique spin on this, be it their own theories, be it the news stuff, be it digging into under the hood of what's here. So these guys are all amazing creators on YouTube. So if you enjoy what we do here, I guarantee that you're going to really dig what they're doing over there on their individual channels. Links are down in the description below. And that's it, friends. So without any further ado, I guess we wait for whatever DLC announcement happens next. I was kind of hoping this whole time that, like, hey, there might be a lore drop, or, you know, scottgames.com might update with, like, whatever happened to Chica's beak, or something like that. Alas, it didn't happen.
I've
Still
had it
didn't
on my
happen.
other monitor.
Yeah, it hasn't happened.
Like-
Yeah, no, it hasn't been refreshing. I've been refreshing.
my
I'm
phone. Yeah.
Just giving a minute.
Give it 5 more minutes.
SecurityBreachTV.com. Steelable Studios on Twitter.
You still got a chance.
Nothing. This is it. I'm wrapping it up for you. No, okay, great. Going, and gone. So anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you guys for supporting all of us through our FNAF coverage. I'm sure we'll be talking about it a lot more whenever that DLC drops. But for now, I feel like this is closing the book a bit on, you know, Chapter 1 of Security Breach. We'll see where it goes from there. So thank you all so much for watching. And as always, remember, it wasn't a theory, but it was a live stream. A live stream for you. We'll see you next time. Bye!